We never know where life will lead us or what may hinder us along the way. But while every day can feel like one big question mark, it doesn't have to. With the right insights, strategies, and solutions from Western and Southern Financial Group, together we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind.
What's Pro Football Focus doing? Last week they had Brady. This week they got Brady.
We're literally doing it differently from everybody else.
As a matter of fact, moving forward from this point on, I will not make reference to PFF.
Do you not understand that they are that way because you're Joe Flacco?
And you just like to discredit things that people deserve credit for.
That you can't possibly be expected to defend that.
Talk about the game, Sam.
So,
who cares about what people think about us?
Yeah, I like football season, all the things that go with
it. Welcome into the PFF NFL Podcast. Steve Palazzolo back here with Sam Monson. We are previewing all things Week 7. But first, want to tell you about our friends over at Monkey Knife Fight, all first-time depositors at Monkey Knife Fight. This is an alert because all you have to do is put in $20 into your account. Use the promo code PFF, and you'll get a free PFF Edge annual subscription. That's 365 days of PFF Edge. $40 value for just $20, and you get the opportunity to turn that 20 into even more money playing daily fantasy and prop games at one of the fastest-growing fantasy sports sites in the country. It's Monkey Knife Fight. So go to Monkey Knife Fight, deposit your $20, use the promo code PFF today, and receive a free PFF Edge annual subscription. I would do that right now. So go do it. Also, special thanks to Pristine Auction. Thanks for sponsoring the PFF NFL podcast, pristineauction.com. Go there and check out their daily auctions with $1 starting bids on over 8,000 football items up for auction, signed helmets, balls, jerseys, and much more. Pristine Auction guarantees authenticity on every product. Use the promo code PFF for $10 off your first invoice. Sam, it's going to be a great show. There's a lot going on here. Hall of Famer Joe Thomas.
Yes.
Future Hall of Famer Joe Thomas at the end of the show. It was a pretty good interview. We did it yesterday, and we'll have him back. Yeah. But all I have to say is, through one conversation with him, you can tell why he's going to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, like not only was he athletically extremely gifted and just from a physical standpoint, the prototype for pass blocking left tackles in the NFL, turns out he also studies harder than anybody else as well and knew more about how to win in addition to the physical. Like, it's just cheating. Like, not, it'd be one thing to just be that talented. That's already kind of cheating. And then to add that kind of work ethic to that talent is just unfair.
Offensive linemen in general are fascinating to talk to, but listen, just, you know, Sean McVay has all those clips of him having like a photographic memory and everything. Yeah. Like, some of Joe Thomas's recall about the players that he faced is just absurd. So that's at the end of the show. Don't fast forward. Listen to us first and then stick around for the Joe Thomas interview because it is fantastic. Also, before we get into it, just want to give a shout out to some of like the lesser known folks in the media landscape. You know, we try to help the little guy here, the PFF NFL
Who we helping
podcast.
This week?
Mina Kimes.
Okay.
So you and I were on the Mina Kimes show this week, her podcast. So go check it out. We had a great discussion on essentially the top 10 teams from a playoff probability standpoint. We went back and forth and discussed their weaknesses. So shout out to Mina, who's doing a great job on ESPN, pushing analytical concepts in a simple way, right?
We applauded her for that on the podcast.
We did. And then also a shout out to Mr. Chris Collinsworth and Richard Sherman. The two guys trying to get their podcast off the ground. Go check it out. So it's on YouTube. It's also anywhere you download and subscribe. This podcast, Chris Collinsworth featuring Richard Sherman every single week. An outstanding football conversation. They get into football. They get into off-the-field stuff. They even went a little off course and discussed basketball a couple weeks ago. But it's a little of everything on that show. Mark your calendars. Don't want to miss it. 60 minutes of great insight. Chris Collinsworth podcast featuring Richard Sherman and a couple other guys.
We have breaking news.
Oh, boy. Can we get some breaking news music here? Some noise? Some sound?
The Ravens have just traded for Yannick Ngakoue.
Really?
Yes, the player that was recently traded to Minnesota at the start of the season.
Fascinating. Minnesota with the fire sale.
Right. So the Vikings are mid-fire sale. It just seems it's unusual for that to be the guy that only just walked in the building. And oh my God, how bad is that defensive line now for Minnesota?
Yeah, that's pretty poor in general. And here's the thing with the Ravens. We now get to see them, and they're on bye this week, right? We now get to see the Ravens with a guy that can win up front, right? They've had to scheme it up the last couple of years. They bring in Calais Campbell. He had a dominant game last week, and he can win up front. But now you just bring more versatility there. Matthew Judon and Calais Campbell and Yannick Ngakoue. You don't have to scheme it up as much. I just think it gives that defensive front even more versatility. Maybe they just want to rush 4 every now and then.
2021 third rounder and a 2022 conditional 5th. So they lost a round in the last, whatever that was, 6 weeks.
For a 6-week potential investment. I want to give credit to the Vikings for at least...
Oh, it was worth rolling a dice.
Yeah, but like the sunk cost, not just rolling with Ngakoue and saying...
Yeah.
Admitting the mistake, we'll say.
Well, I don't even know if it's admitting the mistake as much as just saying the circumstances are different now. We're not challenging for anything, so let's dump everything.
Maybe mistake's not the right word, but it's saying it's easy to say, well, we paid a second. There's no way we're just going to do this for a third. You're at least getting something back in return here, which is
the sunk cost thing is it. You're not being tied to the fact that you gave up more than that to get him 6 weeks ago.
Right.
If you think that now it's the right decision to just dump all assets and move on.
So there we go. We got some Ravens news. Holden, mark it down. It's not all just games on this podcast. We had a breaking news item here. So
can you be a little bit professional on this show?
What?
Nobody wants to hear you like communicating with the behind the scenes people. It's very unprofessional. You would never see Richard Sherman doing that.
Richard's a rookie. They should be taking notes from us.
He's a rookie.
We're the flagship PFF podcast here.
In media experience, dealing with the media. Rookie,
Sherm. Rookie.
Okay.
And Chris? Chris has no podcast experience. He's just, finding his way. He's probably nervous all the time.
That dude has been in media since before either of us were alive.
Well, that's true. Not really. We're not that old. But,
no. No, I know. We are that old.
He called Drew Bledsoe's first game. So
wow.
Holden appreciates the shout out.
Okay.
See, I'm a man of the people. We get everybody some airtime. Even the great Tyler.
Tyler makes an appearance later on.
If you're on YouTube, Joe Thomas interview.
Yeah, if you're on YouTube, stick around for the Joe Thomas interview because you'll see a little Tyler cameo at the back.
Tyler, also, our producer, is a Browns super fan, so we got the Browns helmet.
Yeah, you'll notice the helmet is different. Usually it's Hall of Fame helmet, which is fitting for Joe Thomas. PFF helmet, because, it's our show. And the top one is usually the Kansas City Chiefs helmet because they are the current reigning Super Bowl champions.
Yeah.
But Joe Thomas has nothing to do with the Chiefs. He was a Browns lifer.
So
the helmet's different.
We made it, feel like home for him. All right, let's get into the action. That was a good start, though. Thursday Night Football, it's back. New York Giants at the Philadelphia Eagles. Sam, give us your NFC East scenarios that you're rooting for the most this year.
Oh, well, so I was curious after Dallas lost. We were talking they could get back to 500 on Monday night. And that didn't happen. Really didn't happen. So now they're, 2-4? So at that point, it becomes 2-4 with a commanding lead in the division, by the way.
Yeah.
So at that point, it becomes, okay, how bad can this get? Like, forget 7-9 winning the division. How crappy a record can the team who wins this division actually amass? Now, mathematically, the Giants and Washington can still win with a 4-12 record, right? But that's like so hard to happen because of all the other things. Philadelphia can win with a 4-11-1 record, which is slightly more plausible. Realistically, the most sort of plausible, ridiculous record is a 5-win team can win this division. But I would love nothing more than for the 4-11-1 Eagles to win it. But I will settle.
host a playoff game.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I will settle for a 5-win team winning the division.
I like it. It's something to root for.
Unfortunately, the models say it's still more likely that a 6 or 7 team is still going to take it.
If you're listening here on Thursday, what are we looking for here? Carson Wentz has played better the last couple of weeks. I think it shows up in the stats at some point.
Not just the stats. I think it shows up in the win column at some point. Like, that was the thing. He's played better the last 2 weeks, but they've played the Ravens and the Steelers, so it didn't matter. They still lost both the games. Now they're playing the Giants. So I think this is the week that Carson Wentz finally gets rewarded for showing up and playing better with a win. And then the other thing that's interesting to watch for the Eagles is Fulgham. Is he for real? Like, he's had some insane numbers. He's looked like a legit receiver. I mean, it's always hard to know in small sample sizes, but there's nothing you're looking at him play and not finding a giant glaring amount of weaknesses or just an endless sequence of like holes and zones that he's picking up. Like, he's beating people,
he's making plays
and winning matchups, right? So the league may have screwed up in their evaluation of Travis Fulgham, and he might actually be a really good player.
There's no Zach Ertz, no Alshon Jeffrey, no Miles Sanders now, no Jack Driscoll.
You know what that means?
So more Fulgham. What does it mean?
Boston Scott time.
More Boston Scott time. All right. Well, if you already watched the game, hope you enjoyed Thursday Night Football's return. I'm taking the Eagles to win and cover. I'm believing in them. 4.5-point spread as of recording time. Let's get into some of the big games this weekend. Starting out west, the NFC West. Seattle Seahawks at the Arizona Cardinals. It's a really good matchup. You've got the Cardinals. They're at home. I think, Seattle's kind of had some quirky games at Arizona, even when the Cardinals weren't that good. And now they look like a much better all-around team. They're coming off that throttling of the Cowboys. Throttling. On Monday Night Football. Seattle's also had a week off. You get Russ in an indoor environment. There's rumors that they're going to try to sign Antonio Brown.
Right. What is with that?
I think the Seahawks it's not that they've tried to get playmakers through the years. John Schneider's, he's gone after
Josh Gordon.
Josh Gordon, but he traded for Sidney Rice years ago. He traded for Jimmy Graham,
Percy
Harvin. Like this has been their mentality.
But usually it's because they haven't had them.
Right, but
they have them.
But I think they have them, and they're just like, man, we are seeing how valuable this is. I mean, if it takes a couple Chris Carson carries away to feed Antonio Brown with DK Metcalf and with Tyler Lockett and with David Moore, are you kidding me?
Have the Chiefs just started like an arms race in the NFL? That's like, if you're good so Kansas City is the New England, right? They're the team you have to beat if you want to make a Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl, right? So if you're the Seahawks, you're like, all right, we might get through the NFC, but then we're going to have to face Kansas City in a Super Bowl, and they have, oh my God, look at all the weapons. We might have a quarterback that can go toe-to-toe with them.
That's it.
So we need more than DK and Tyler Lockett and David Moore and apparently Chris Carson. Like, we need to add Antonio Brown to the mix and the train wreck of a headache he brings.
I think that's it, though, man. We spend our entire offseason, draft analysis, free agent analysis, saying go 4 deep at receiver/tight end, 5 deep,
And if he didn't come with any like baggage, I'd be all for it. But wow, that's a risk to be taken when you've already got, a pretty good setup.
Look, you have to take some of the off-field aside, take the locker room component out of it, maybe.
How? That's the whole thing.
What's the downside?
That. You can't park the downside for a minute. What's the downside? What are you talking about? That's the downside.
Well, how does that affect things?
How does it affect things? How did it affect the last 2 teams he blew up?
The only thing it affects is if you prepared to have Antonio Brown and then you don't have him.
No,
so for the Raiders.
What if you bring him in and there's a bunch of people that warm to him and then you have to boot him out the door because he goes crazy again?
Then you're the 5-0 Seahawks that you are right now with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett.
You're the 5-0 Seahawks that you are right now, except you just pissed off a bunch of people that got to be his buddy and now he's gone.
It doesn't matter.
Of course it matters.
Players' feelings don't matter.
Of course they matter.
They do not.
Yes, they do.
They do not. It only affected, say, the Raiders last year because they had nobody to replace them. It affected the Patriots last year because they had nobody to replace them. You take this chance because the payout is so much greater than the downside.
How much greater is it when you already have DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett?
I think, they had Josh Gordon last year for a little bit, and he only showed up in a couple games, but I think that's okay. I mean, I think you have a couple games where maybe DK does get shut down by somebody or doesn't have a great matchup, right? And it's like, oh, I can go to Antonio Brown now. I think having options, the best teams, I think, have options to win individual games differently. All right? I don't want to spend too much time on Antonio Brown because he's not there. But the Seahawks passing game has been incredible. Russell Wilson right now are currently our highest graded quarterback now that Aaron Rodgers had that rough game.
Stinker.
Can Arizona actually slow down this offense?
No, they can't.
I don't think so.
I'm also, so the thing that's interesting is that side of the ball to me. They are kind of going in a similar way to Seattle in terms of they don't have any pass rushers anymore. Like Chandler Jones is down. He was their primary source of pass rushers. So suddenly it's let's fire Budda Baker on the blitz. And
Budda was making plays all over the field Monday night. That was
game.
Awesome.
He's one of those fun guys. You see it at every single level. There's somebody that just plays the game at a different speed.
Yeah.
And like most people, when they're running towards somebody to make a tackle, ease up before they get there, right? You don't run through the dude because, I mean, usually there's breaking down or whatever, but like you don't just run and accelerate and keep accelerating through the body that you're about to contact. Budda Baker does. He doesn't slow down. And sometimes it's going to be bad and he's going to miss a tackle because of it, because just before he arrives, the guy, takes a half step either way and you hit a soft shoulder. But when it works, it just looks so much fun.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite things in football is to watch a safety have an all-around game like Budda Baker had, where he had a forced fumble, he had an interception, he had a sack, 2 other pressures. They're using him as a blitzer. He blitzed 11 times in that game. So that is the similarity to Seattle there is how they're using Jamal Adams. And it's because, why do you have to blitz Budda Baker 11 times? Because Chandler Jones is hurt, yes. And no one else has a pass rush grade above 70.
Yeah, they had
that's the issue.
9 different guys rush the passer more than 10 times in that game. And another 2 rush the passer 8 and 9 times, respectively. So they are sending everybody to try and make up for that lack of pure one-on-one ability to win a pass rush.
From an Arizona standpoint, I do think one of the interesting developments is Hassan Reddick, who they did not pick up his 5th-year option, former first-round pick. Had a really rough transition to linebacker his first 3 years in the league. And now he was a college edge rusher, right?
Yeah.
And they're actually sending him. They've sent him 111 times this year. They did that a little bit more his rookie season, but they're trying to like get something out of him. And that's been better than, having him try to play zone coverage, which he really struggled with. So
that's always where he should have been playing.
Yeah, as kind of one of those guys that we always talk about at draft time, like, oh, this guy's going to create third down indecision for your offense. But either way, the point that Arizona has to scheme up pressure, it does leave holes on the back end. And I think it's Dre Kirkpatrick and Patrick Peterson on the outside, both grading under 60. Dre had that pick where he form tackled CD Lamb before picking it up.
That was amazing.
But that could be a mismatch for Seattle.
The other thing this does is put Isaiah Simmons on the field more. Because they're, things have had to change because Chandler Jones isn't there anymore. So Simmons is actually earning some more playing time, which is at the moment a concern because he's basically a walking bullseye at this point, right? Like he is a potential weak link in that secondary until he shows otherwise. And he got away with it. I mean, I don't say he got away with it. Dallas didn't exploit it, but we've seen teams exploit it before this season. The Seahawks feel like a team, particularly with Russell Wilson, that will target that more if you give him the bullseye on defense to go after.
Other side of the ball, Seattle, as we talked about their issues getting pressure. It's been a little bit better in recent weeks, but there's nobody up front that just wins one-on-ones. Like if they picked up an Ngakoue or if they traded for a J.J. Watt or something, I could see that being a thing that they would be investigating in Seattle. But that matchup against Arizona, Kyler Murray, I always talk about his floor being high because of rushing. That was him the other night. He was like 9 for 24, 2 big passes that, were kind of wide open, and then a whole bunch of yards on the ground, and their offense scores a ton of points. So I do think that's a huge factor is the fact that he can scramble for 60 or 70 yards in a game and kind of cover up a 9 for 24 outing.
Yeah, his passing hasn't taken the step people thought it would. And we kind of highlighted that before the season, said, look, there's some numbers from his rookie year that are not tremendously encouraging in terms of how he's going to progress from a passing standpoint, right? His performance in rhythm and without pressure and first read, all these kinds of things weren't good. And those are the stable things. They're the things that don't tend to take giant leaps one year to the next. And that's kind of what we're seeing. Like he hasn't taken the step forward, and people are sort of saying he's a worse player because of it. But the point is that he's stepped up as a runner, and like I think he has the most scramble yards in the NFL by a distance. He has the second most designed rushing yards behind only Lamar, and it's like 10 yards. Yeah. So overall, like he has a commanding lead in terms of overall quarterback rushing yards. Plus, he's got 6 rushing touchdowns. Like he's become this goal line nightmare in terms like a trump card, right? You get down to the goal line, and it's crap. Kyler Murray is this thing that we have to work. Like he's a Cam Newton down by the goal line, except instead of power running over your head, he's taking it around the edge and making defensive backs fall over without touching him. Like, he's become this red zone, end zone matchup problem for a team who's not used to dealing with it.
Seattle's favored by 3.5.
Yeah.
On the road. I'm leaning Seattle, but I think if Arizona's going to win this game, I'm leaning Seattle to cover as well. If Arizona's going to win this game, I think you're going to have all of their offensive stuff is going to come together. The deep shots to Isabella and Kirk. DeAndre Hopkins is going to make some big boy plays. By the way, do you think, I don't know if you've watched closely enough on Hopkins, does he look quicker this year?
I have thought that. I've also, it's tough, right? It's difficult to know if he does look quicker or if he's being used in ways that the Texans didn't necessarily
more
use.
Space instead of just vertical routes and everything.
Yeah, and the scheme generally, I think, is giving him space to work with that he didn't necessarily have before.
He's forced 9 missed tackles after the catch.
And he always kind of had that skill. You would see these plays every now and again in Houston. It's like, wow, I didn't kind of know DeAndre Hopkins could do that.
Right.
But he can. It's just that if you give him the space to do that instead of just feeding him a million hitch routes, like, he can make some plays. And now we're seeing what happens when you spread everything wide and he's got more space to operate in. He's getting the ball with more room, which lets him run off the catch more, and you see some of that.
Speed and agility all just look top-notch right now. So I think this is, if Arizona's going to win, I think you're talking about Nuke with like 12 catches for $150 and really taking over. I do like Seattle in this one, though, and also, the Seahawks staying hot here.
I mean, those deep shots that they didn't hit, except for the one to Christian Kirk, like, if they can connect on a couple of those, I mean, those are game-changing plays, right? The first one, actually, honestly, they both kind of look like Isabella made a balls of them to me. Yeah. I think those were both very catchable passes from Kyler Murray. The first one, I don't know if Isabella lost it or if he just didn't bend his route early enough to come across the field, but that looked kind of where it should have been thrown. And then the second one, I have no idea why you would break off your route and head towards the sideline 25 yards downfield. I don't have any idea what the hell he was doing there, but those were two plays that could have been, immediate field flipping passes.
Thank you. Speaking of our terms, send our friend Andrew Siciliano a text. First off, congratulate him for being COVID-free.
I did.
Second,
I sent him a tweet to congratulate him.
How come you have everybody's phone number and I don't? You have Joe Thomas's number.
Yeah, me and Joe text.
But tell Andrew, if Isabella makes a play, we need a Russian pencil.
Yes.
Okay, so that'll be this week's Easter egg on the DirecTV Red Zone.
He got false positived.
Yeah,
had to sit out. Had to take a seat on the bench.
I've been there.
Yeah,
mine wasn't false positive.
Right, yours was a positive.
Yeah, but it was a positive 2 weeks after I had my symptoms.
Yeah.
Positives can stay there forever.
That's still kind of different from a false positive.
It's a positive, but it's a late one.
He was incorrectly told that he had COVID and had to park himself for a week of action. You were correctly told that you had COVID just after it made any difference.
Yeah. Same thing, kind of. All right, where are you going with this one? Seattle and Arizona?
I am taking Seattle, and I don't know if they'll cover or not. Oh, that's how confident I am in this bit.
That's a good answer. Weird stuff happens in Arizona, and weird stuff happens in division games.
Yeah.
So I could see Arizona pulling this one off. Plus, I mean, every Seattle game is weird in general. So, all right, let's go to Sunday Night Football. Tampa Bay Bucks at the Las Vegas Raiders. Raiders coming off of a bye. Bucks just played the Packers coming off of a bye too. Back-to-back bye teams. It's in the Vegas Dome, and it could have been a big return home for Tom Brady, but they moved. They moved out of the Bay Area to Vegas.
That's a nice stadium, though.
Bucks. So in the last 2 weeks, the Bucks lost to the Bears on Thursday Night Football.
Yeah,
and then they demoralized the Packers.
Yeah,
but the demoralizing of the Packers is what's getting all of the publicity. It's the last thing that we saw.
Yeah,
they're up to 3 in the PFF Power Rankings, our ELO rankings. They just made a statement. Are we overrating that one game statement that the Bucks made?
No, because I don't like. It's not like they got their ass kicked against the Bears. Like Tom Brady had the ball with a drive to win the game and forgot how many downs there are in football. Right? That's not something you legislate for typically. One of the things that's a common theme throughout all those comeback wins of Tom Brady's career is that he's been able to count how many downs there are. He knows. I mean, he's very good at that. That's why he's in the Hall of Fame one day. But he forgot against the Bears, so they lost. I don't think that's massively indicative of some huge failing of this team. I think it's fair to say that they might not be a 38-10 win against Green Bay better than, the best teams in the NFC, which is potentially a conclusion you could draw. But I think it's fair to say I think it's fair to say that game means more than the result of the Chicago game, which is a loss. That game, they had 38 unanswered points against the Green Bay Packers.
It was 10-0 quickly.
Right.
Yeah.
And then nothing from that point on.
Right.
That's kind of nuts.
Yeah, the Bucs defense, not to repeat ourselves again, but it is so tough to say. This defense is elite. They'll do it every week. But as far as capable defenses go, all the pieces are in place. And then you see that game where Jamel Dean has the highest coverage grade in the NFL right now, the cornerback from Auburn, who's I remember evaluating him in college. I'm like, why is this a linebacker out here playing corner?
Yeah.
And then he goes to the combine and runs sub 4.4.
Turns out that's why.
Yeah, because he's really good. And Carlton Davis is really good too. I mean, those guys can beat you up in press coverage. And then the speed at which Levante David is playing. And, Devin White, the grade's not great. He's not always in the right position. But it's kind of like there's enough splash plays in there that it's, it kind of works for them. There's just speed at every level, and they are doing a really good job of getting after it.
This now becomes, though, this fascinating chess match, right? Because they unleashed the blitz against Rodgers. They didn't start off that way, but then they got to him like at one point in the game. They got to him with the blitz, and it's like, oh, maybe. Because usually you don't blitz Aaron Rodgers, right? He carves it up along with every other like elite quarterback in the NFL. So they like took a swing at it. It worked, and it's like, oh, hang on. Then you blitz them again and again and again, and it's like every time you do, it's working. So they just sent the house, right? 51% of the time they blitzed Aaron Rodgers, and they weren't doing it at the start of the game. Right. So from like a point in the game, they basically just blitzed him every play, and he never figured it out or never was able to get past it. So that sets up this really interesting situation heading into the next week, because you put all this on tape, right? You basically put all of your blitzes on tape for the Raiders to see. So what do you do next? It's like this sort of situation, like a penalty shootout, right? If you've gone like in the same direction a couple of times, well, now what do you do the next time, right? Do you keep going that way because eventually one of them's got to go to your left, or do you go the other way now? So the Bucs blitzed the crap out of Aaron Rodgers, and it worked really well. So now you're facing Derek Carr and the Raiders. Do you stick with what worked, knowing that you put it all on tape and that they had a chance to look at and figure out what was going? Or do you anticipate that's what they're going to have studied, and instead this week it's going to be all 8-man zones and there's not going to be a blitz in sight?
Well, I think it's in Bull's nature to do that, and he's kind of... To get after it. But he's also kind of like your Rex Ryans, or the way the Ravens play, or the way certain teams, even when you're not blitzing, there's the threat, and you're crowding the line of scrimmage, and there's some trust in the corners on the outside. But yeah, I mean, it is kind of week to week with them too. They played really soft against Nick Foles and the Bears.
Yeah.
Right? They played a lot of soft zone, and Foles kind of picked it. There was a point where Foles did a nice job picking them apart underneath. So they're back and forth, but I could see them staying aggressive. The Henry Ruggs factor, though, right? Jamel Dean's a monster, and he's fast and all that stuff, but nobody's Henry Ruggs fast. How much does that continue to open things up for this Raiders offense?
And also, this is a good way of beating Derek Carr and the Raiders on paper, right? They want to take the short stuff. They want to get quick passes. You can be aggressive and force him to essentially, if you're going to win, you're going to need to connect on these deep shots over the top. And now the Raiders are really capable of doing that because you've got Henry Ruggs, and Nelson Aguilar has been a good deep threat as well. Like, they have players that can win over the top, but they clearly still don't like doing it, right? It's not in Derek Carr's nature to be an aggressive down the field passer constantly. He'll take the shot to back you off, but it's not like if you're going to come after him all day long and essentially dare him to do that, I don't know if he's willing to do that. If he's willing to say, all right, I'm going to put the ball deep 10 times today because that's what they're showing me on tape.
Blitz numbers for Carr. A grade is 63 compared to a 72 when not blitzed, but the passer rating, the stats are better against the blitz. 123.5 passer rating in 9.6 yards per attempt against the blitz.
Right, because
and they haven't
of
been
those
blitzed a
deep
ton.
shots.
Yeah, so that will be a fun little cat and mouse game with the Tampa Bay defense going up against the Raiders offense. On the other side of the ball, the Raiders are coming off a performance where Cleveland Farrell and Max Crosby had a ton of pressures, but it wasn't a dominant outing from them necessarily. This was against the Chiefs a couple weeks ago. It was Patrick Mahomes inviting pressure.
Right.
I don't expect the pass rush to get home against Brady's quick release, the Bucs' pretty good offensive line. So then it becomes Bucs receivers against the Raiders' back seven in a dome.
Yeah.
I feel like the Bucs have the advantage here because they're back to full strength. They're all on the injury report. Mike Evans, Scotty Miller, Chris Godwin, but they're
getting healthy.
A couple weeks removed from where the injury started. So I think the Bucs should have the advantage here.
Right. They're recovering as opposed to, new injuries.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about this on Mina's podcast. The Bucs, I think, are rounding into the kind of team that they could be for the rest of this season. There's so much talent on this team. There's so much good coming together that, and with the weird offseason and lack of preseason, it felt like it was going to take some time. So this week one showdown of Tampa Bay versus New Orleans, everyone's like, oh, this could be an NFC Championship game preview. Yeah, but we're probably not going to see it week one because the Bucs are going to take a bit of work, right? But now might be the time where this is all coming together. The defense is in its groove. The offense is starting to figure out what it is. The receivers are getting healthy. They haven't had most of them for the first few weeks of the season. The Bucs from here on in could look like the best team in the NFL.
We're obligated by contract not to talk about the run game, but Ronald Jones running the ball pretty well lately.
Sorry, go on.
I'm just joking about the run game thing, but yeah.
Along the theme of, does DeAndre Hopkins look faster? Does Ronald Jones look bigger to you?
A little bit. He's playing with more power, I would say.
He's always played with pretty good power. I mean, even when he was skinny. But just this last week, I was like, did he look that big before? Like, has he added some? Been in the weight room, added a few pounds.
He might be on the TB12 method, but that doesn't get you.
No, that's the other way. That leans you out.
He's as far away from TB12 as possible. The Raiders have the fourth worst run defense grade, the worst tackling grade. So again, as much as we talk pass game, the Bucs are going to run the ball. They do like to have some semblance of balance on offense, and I think it could be another one of those 100-yard games for Ronald Jones. And if that's within the flow of the game, it's beneficial, not just grinding the clock at the end. So I like the Bucs in this one, Sam. Where are you going with this? It's a 3.5-point spread. Bucs favored here on the road.
Yeah, I like the Bucs. As I say, I think they could be the best team in the NFL for a while.
Yeah, if that pass game coming together, Brady and Arians, got to see how it develops. All right, Monday Night Football. Chicago Bears at the Los Angeles Rams.
It's all the primetime games this week.
Yeah, there's some good ones. This will be. Oh man, they've had some good battles the last couple of years. 2018 was a good one. Rams go to the Super Bowl, but the Bears beat them in Chicago. So this one's in LA. Rams are coming off that loss last week. Against who? My mind just went
San
blank.
Francisco.
Against the 49ers, right there on Sunday Night Football. Nice job, Steve. And the Bears, are they the worst 5-1 team we've ever seen? Our friends, they're not really friends, Football Outsiders, I think Aaron Schatz, he's I do panels with him, and every now, we talk.
Oh, yeah.
We're okay. Not friends, but we hang out once a year. And I think they actually looked it up in their numbers, and the Bears are not the worst 5-1 team in their extensive database. So just to answer that question, in your mind, though, worst 5-1 team in history?
I don't think they're a bad team.
I know you like them. I put you on the spot about the Bears every single week.
The problem is,
can they beat the Rams here? They're 6-point underdogs at LA.
If you don't have a good quarterback, people think you suck. Like, the rest of the roster is good. There's a reason that they're 5-1 despite not having good quarterback play, and it's because they're a good team.
Last time we talked about this was 2 years ago. The Panthers were 6-2, and every week we said this is the worst team in history, and they went from 6-2 to 6-6 pretty quickly. We were right.
This is the Rams are 6-point favorites.
So Vegas isn't buying. Like the Bears barely have a positive point differential.
The Rams just lost to the 49ers.
Yeah, but the 49ers
that was the 49ers' first win outside of New Jersey.
Yeah, but the 49ers, the Rams came together.
The Rams are 4-0 against the NFC East and 0-2 against not the NFC East.
I get it.
And they're 6-point favorites against the Bears, who are 5-1 and quite good.
Yeah, I understand. I can't wait to see this Bears defense match up against the Rams and McVay. They did a great job. They've done a good job of slowing down that offense. The Niners did a good job of slowing down that offense and taking away some of the easy stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's a low-scoring game, but
explain to me how they're 6-point favorites. Justify it. Justify Vegas for me.
Nick Foles has put up 4 straight weeks of grades in the 60s. And when you do that, you're going to score 15 to 20 points a game.
All right.
Over time, that's what's going to happen.
Okay.
And the Rams have playmakers like Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp who are not going to drop the ball like they did on Sunday night against the 49ers. They're going to catch the ball this time.
Really?
And they got a couple tight ends that are tough to cover.
Yeah.
And the Rams have more offensive firepower. That's it. And Jared Goff is playing like a top 10 quarterback.
Do they have more offensive firepower?
They have the ability to get the ball to their firepower more, as the way Nick Foles is playing right now.
We're changing now. Now they don't have more offensive firepower. They just have.
I mean, if Jared Goff was throwing to Allen Robinson and Darnell Mooney, Cole Kmet's going to emerge as a nice tight end threat for my dynasty team. I just like the Rams offense better.
Okay, I could buy that. I don't see a 6-point swing. The Rams scored 16 against the 49ers, who don't have a particularly good defense at the moment.
Look, I would probably take the Bears to cover, but I really need this theory tested by our friends over at the PFF Forecast.
Yeah.
When the hypothetical tier 3 or even tier 4 quarterback, my theory is that you just can't predict those games from a gambling standpoint.
Yeah.
Compared to, tier 1 or 2 quarterbacks.
Dude, Nick Foles, the most volatile quarterback in the NFL. Why would you ever want to put money on that?
I wouldn't.
Because it could go anywhere.
Right.
Like statistically, it can go anywhere. I would just point out, though, that the Rams have scored 20 or fewer points 3 times this season. So for all this high power, and they've played the NFC East, remember? All of it.
Yeah, I think
the Bears have a good defense.
They're playing a safe brand of offense. I mean, they're playing a safe brand of football. Not a lot of big-time throws from Goff. He threw a dime. He had the big-time throw of the week last week, by the way. It was dropped along the sideline by Woods. Not a lot of big-time throws, not a lot of turnover. It's just a safe brand of football.
Yes.
But they're ready to unload.
I do think that Aaron Donald against Chicago's interior offensive line is a pretty massive mismatch.
Yes.
We talked about this, or I talked about this on Miami radio, maybe, talking about the Tua thing, right? If you're facing Aaron Donald, you can remove him from the game, right? You can scheme him out of it. You can get rid of the ball quickly. You can run away from him. You can double team him. You can do all kinds of stuff to make sure that Aaron Donald is not a factor in the game. But you do need to do that, because if you don't, he will destroy you. Like, it's simple, right? If you game plan for him, he can be eliminated, but you have to actually consciously do that for 60-something plays in a game. Because if you don't, he will ruin your life. And if you're Chicago and you have a pretty bad interior to begin with, and Nick Foles, who's capable of just like blindly heaving the ball into triple coverage when he's under pressure, you do need to go ahead and do that. Because if you decide that, we're just going to execute our game plan, execute better than they will, and that's how we win the game, you will die. He will wreck your game,
right? And
it will be night-night. And that's 6 points right there. So that's like the first step, right? If we come out and Chicago has no interest in dedicating extra resources to Aaron Donald, the Rams will win and the Rams will cover 6 points. If they do that, however, I think they have a good shot of winning this game.
Khalil Mack is back.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
I don't think it's coincidence, by the way, that he's back when Akeem Hicks is back.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to that. I will say, looking back at the last couple of years, remember in 2018, the Bears defense was really incredible. The Rams offense was rolling. And this was when the Rams offense started to slow down at the end of the year, and the Bears held them to 6 points on Sunday Night Football. Last year, they held them to 17 in a loss. So the Bears do have a history of slowing down the offense and keeping it close. All right. All right. You talking me back into it?
Yeah.
No, 6 is rich. I agree 6 is rich. I like Chicago to cover. I like the Rams to win. If for nothing else, I think the Bears being 5-1, I'm a couple weeks in a row probably going to be saying this, like they have to come back down to earth. I like the Rams to win, Bears to cover.
I have gone the same way, but I really wouldn't be shocked if Chicago won this outright.
Oh man, you are the biggest. Once they got rid of Trubisky,
well,
even when they had him, you've become the biggest Bears fan.
Trubisky was playing well enough that he wasn't preventing a good team winning games. Foles has come in and hasn't really upgraded on Trubisky. And they're still winning games. And he hasn't played well. Like, at some point, Foles is actually going to play well, and this team is going to look like the 85 Bears, let alone the 2020 ones. This is a foundationally good team. Not fundamentally. This is a foundationally good team that has pieces. It just needs a quarterback. And they haven't got one yet. If they do, the ceiling is high. Forget the floor. The fact that they, 5-1 is a myth. This is a better team than 5-1 if they get a quarterback.
You just going to keep your thesaurus handy?
Well, I now need another one because I've used fundamental and
thesaurus open,
and I need a third.
Roll through the options. I'll give you some time.
Cool.
To do that. I'm taking the Rams to win Bears to cover.
Yeah.
All right, Green Bay Packers at the Houston Texans. Did you hear the question that was posed to Aaron Rodgers in his response yesterday?
No.
Man, we should get that clip.
What is it?
Pulled in. It was something to the effect of, how do you feel about our teams catching on to you, essentially, coming off that game? And Aaron gave this reporter the death stare. And he was like, 1 game out of 5? And then, people are like, oh, rest in peace, Houston, 60 points coming up. And I don't disagree.
Yeah, I mean,
3.5 points, by the way, Green Bay's favorite at Houston. But, going back to this indoor environment with Aaron Rodgers chucking it around, coming off of this ridiculous loss. And I have some stats for you.
Yes.
Aaron Rodgers has, let me pull him up exactly. He's got 3 games grading under 50.
Okay. Yeah.
3 games grading under 50 since 2016. And he's come out of those games, the following game, 11 touchdowns, no interceptions. Pretty much just dominant the next week. And all of his PFF grades are 78 or better in those games. So he does, on one hand, you liked the mental aspect of it. You're like, oh, he just knows how to bounce back, right? And then like the statistical aspect of it is like, well, Aaron Rodgers is really, really good.
Yeah.
So if you're really bad one week, you're going to be good. No matter which way you look at it, we're probably not going to see 45 PFF grade Aaron Rodgers this week at Houston.
No. I mean, the Texans have a bad defense. So Aaron Rodgers against bad defense, we've seen 5 weeks of that, and he was the best quarterback in the NFL. That's probably closer to where he's going to be than a guy who couldn't score for most of the game against Tampa Bay because they blitzed the hell out of him.
I also wonder if Aaron Rodgers, the last couple of years, he's been more of like the 8th to 10th best quarterback in the league by our grades. Is he just going to continue to regress back to that? And it's really going to be a lot of good game, bad game until he gets there. Or is it literally 11 to 14, or 2011, 2014 Rodgers is back minus 1 game?
Yeah, and you're also now in this position where it's the reverse of what Tampa Bay are dealing with this week. If you're Houston, you just saw a game plan that beat the crap out of Aaron Rodgers, blitzed the hell out of him, right? 51% of the snaps, they blitzed him, and he couldn't deal with it all game long. So what do? Do you say, well, that worked really well, let's try a bit of that? Or do you say, Rodgers has spent the last week trying to figure out why he couldn't deal with the blitz, so let's probably not blitz him because he's going to be ready for it this week. And again, typically, Aaron Rodgers carves up the blitz. Like this season against the blitz, he's been pretty good, and that includes the Tampa Bay game. Like you strip that out, he's Aaron Rodgers still. Yeah,
the problem with duplicating that game plan is Bradley Roby is on the other end, playing corner. He had a nice interception last week. He's made some nice plays. He's doing all right. But Vernon Hargreaves playing on the other side. I mean, it's the guys you're trotting out at cornerback for Houston. Again, I do the Sean Salisbury show every week, and I feel like a broken record. Like, how does Houston fix this year? I'm like, I don't see it. I don't see how they fix it defensively, at least. By the way, Deshaun Watson quietly tied for the league lead in yards per attempt, 8.9. As much as we've talked about how's he going to do without DeAndre Hopkins, they're figuring it out offensively.
He's bounced back against some bad defenses.
Right. But I think they can hang in a shootout, but it's going to come down to, do you trust Houston to stop Green Bay with really no pass rush? Zach Cunningham, I am just so disappointed in little Zach. He's big Zach, but disappointed in his play this year.
Well, you can call him little Zach. He's shorter and lighter than you.
He is. 10 missed tackles already this year, busted gaps in the run game. That's the other part. Let's talk run game again. If Zach Cunningham continues to play with terrible gap discipline, we're talking Aaron Jones going for 150 or 200 yards here too.
Yeah.
So
will help.
Yes.
Really this comes down to what Houston can do on offense, because I agree with you that Rodgers is going to set fire to them on defense.
They're going to cover.
Green Bay
3.5.
I could see that.
I think so too. Aaron Rodgers back on the revenge tour. Let's go to the NFC South. Carolina Panthers at the New Orleans Saints. 7.5 for the Saints.
This is a battle of the conservative quarterbacks. Like, which guy is going to grow a pair for this game and actually push the ball down the field a little bit? Drew Brees, old man Brees couldn't complete anything for the first couple of weeks. It was beyond like 4 yards from the line of scrimmage. Last couple, he's been a little bit more aggressive, but it's like he's still been one of the most conservative quarterbacks in terms of pushing the ball down the field. Teddy Bridgewater with Robbie Anderson there, with DJ Moore, he's become more aggressive than his baseline, but is still one of the most conservative quarterbacks in the NFL, both in terms of average depth of target and in terms of percentage of deep passes in his attempts. So like this game could come down to like which guy is just prepared to uncork one down the field.
I also think, I mean, from the Saints offense has still moved the ball pretty well.
Yeah.
With that style.
And so have the Panthers. Like they've both been functionally okay. The question is, that's the thing, right? If you're going back and forth with a guy and both of you are just trying to like win, chip away at this thing bit by bit, like you can cut all that out if I just like go deep one time. You know what I mean? Like Robbie Anderson's flying past somebody over there. Let's just heave one.
I'm just saying from like a Saints point of view, that underneath game plan might work pretty well against this defense. Shaq Thompson, he's okay. Coverage linebacker, he has a lot asked of him, but the grades haven't been great the last couple of years. To hear Whitehead, I mean, they've just got guys playing in space that you could probably take advantage of with that that system. Jeremy Chin, his grades are going to creep back here, buddy. Nice interception last week. He's the guy that's breaking our system, the rookie safety / linebacker / slot corner. What do you call him from a position standpoint? He's kind of like what Isaiah Simmons was at Clemson. He's doing a million different things, and it's tough to be excellent at all of those things. But yeah, I think Cornelder's playing pretty well for the Panthers. It's a fascinating year for the Panthers because I think on paper they're not good, but they're capable on offense, and they've got some intriguing players on defense that are going to be a part of this rebuild here. So division games, you never know, but I feel good about the Saints coming off the bye here, putting a little whooping on the Panthers here.
You think a whooping? You think they'll?
I think it looks more Saints-like.
I mean, I think they'll win, but I think this could actually be kind of close.
7.5. I'll take the Saints here. You're a Teddy guy, though.
Well, I mean, look, I think I'm really a Robbie Anderson guy at this point. Like we already knew he was one of the best deep threats in the NFL, but this season, because he's been paired with Teddy, this pathologically conservative quarterback, he's shown that he's got everything else as well. Like he can run after the catch, he can operate across the middle of the field as well. Like Anderson has become a well-rounded number one receiver, not just this guy who can take the top off your defense. Yeah, I do like that Anderson and DJ Moore as like a 1-2 punch are looking really good together. So they are, as a tandem, pretty good. And also, like, quietly, well, not even quietly, the Saints' defense has kind of sucked. They're great on paper, but none of them are actually playing that well.
And we talked about that on Mina's podcast. Do we expect them to just play to their ability at some point, and then they become scary? The paper champion Saints. Or do we call that a weakness? I think this game will be telling. Teddy's I'm always fascinated when you have a guy that knows the offense, though, too. Teddy knows the offense and how much it feels like something that you could take advantage of, but it happens all the time in football. People change teams. But knowing the offense and knowing when they check and how they check, and if you show this, they're going to do that, there's an advantage to that. I don't know how much Carolina can tap into that from Teddy's standpoint, but I think that's another interesting storyline. I like the Saints, though. I like them to cover 7.5, too. I'm a big favorite guy.
All right. I'm going to take the Panthers to cover, but the Saints to win.
Shoot, who's Clemson playing this week? Let's skip this next game. Clemson has... Come on, give me a schedule.
Can't get a schedule? Oh, dear.
Because the Bills and Jets are next up on our list here.
Oh, but I've actually got something to watch in this one that isn't the Jets. This is the Josh Allen game, right? We had apology form Josh Allen, where he was like an MVP candidate, and then we had the actual Josh Allen from the first 2 years for the last 2 weeks.
Oh, he's coming back.
Who's coming back this week?
4-touchdown Josh Allen.
Real, like,
back. Oh, yeah.
Elite apology form Josh Allen is coming back this week?
Syracuse at Clemson, Saturday at noon.
All right.
Check out Trevor Lawrence. His game, I mean, Jets fans, if you did watch Trevor Lawrence last week against Georgia Tech, like, you're rooting for some L's here. Jets fans. He looked legit. He had one pick. Yeah. But he throws cover 2 shots and outside the number passes like in his sleep.
I mean, I know. So every time the next great generational quarterback comes out, it's like he's the best since, right? So who is he the best since? Because most people go back to Andrew Luck. I saw Renner from the 2-for-1 draft podcast.
He went further.
Now, I don't think he actually put a stop on it. He just said he's better than Luck. So that takes you back to who? Manning? I mean, who was the best pre-Luck?
You have to do it as a prospect, right?
Yeah, you got to give me the prospect that you stop at.
Yeah, but like
so Luck was 2012.
What happens when Drew Brees came out and was a second rounder?
Not a prospect. Not interested.
He was a prospect, but they just got misevaluated.
Bad prospect. Not interested. Andrew Luck was the best prospect since Peyton Manning. Is that the one before Andrew Luck?
Yeah, I mean the only people that even have that title, I think, Andrew Luck 2012, Peyton Manning 1998, John Elway 1983.
Elway, yeah, okay.
Before that, I don't even know who it was.
So we're the best since Peyton.
Best since Peyton, yeah.
And if not, we've got to go to the best since Elway.
Yeah, but to say that he's better than Peyton, like nobody can go past Peyton.
Nobody?
No.
People didn't even know that people didn't even know he was better than Ryan Leaf in 98.
But it's like when I hear he's the best since Elway, I feel like it's implying, well, he'll have a better career than Peyton Manning.
No, just that he was a better prospect.
Well, then he's a better prospect than Peyton.
You haven't
probably
understood this concept at all.
No, because prospect is like you're taking a million different opinions, and it's just this like phantom perception thing.
It's a combination of like cleanest prospect plus ceiling.
He's clean with a high ceiling.
That's what I'm saying.
He's clean with a high ceiling.
So he might be the best prospect since Elway.
Well, because you have the rushing ability in there too. Like he can run.
Right.
He's 6'6" with a cannon, accurate, good decision maker, and can run.
Peyton couldn't.
Peyton couldn't run.
Right. I mean, could a little bit, but
didn't need
not
to.
Really.
But he also Peyton didn't have a cannon, but it didn't matter because everything else made up for it. So yeah, I mean, Lawrence's ceiling is he's closer to John Elway. But you could say the same thing about Luck.
I'm trying to help you out here.
Let me describe Luck.
I'm trying to get you your moment on TV so that you can be like, he is the best prospect since John Elway, and you can put that up.
Do we let Neil become a star?
I'm not sure it's sensible to plug Neil live into the podcast.
No, Neil, I'll call you back, buddy. Anyway,
so to camera, you need to be like best prospect since Elway.
Trevor Lawrence, Clemson. The best quarterback prospect since John Elway. That's it.
There you go. Now you're going to go viral, all because of me.
That's it. Yeah. All right. That's good. He'll live up to it. So watch the Syracuse-Clemson game. Buffalo's favored by 13 against the Jets at New York. Any reason to believe the Jets can keep this one close?
No, there isn't, Steve. The Jets are bad, and the Bills aren't. The Bills have some problems on defense. I think this is actually a reasonably interesting game to see if there's any signs of life from the Jets. This is a defense you can actually attack at this point. Do they still have that in them, or are they just like a dead body that people are poking with a stick every week?
Like a beached whale?
No, not like a beached whale. I'm just a dead body in the street.
I will say, rematches in division, I'm using that as analysis a lot, but that does skew things sometimes. There's familiarity there. It is tough to get blown out by a division opponent twice.
Okay.
I'll just say that. I think the Jets keep it somewhat close, but the Bills pull away late. So I get the Bills even 13. Covering 13 on the road. No, give me the Jets. Jets are covering.
All right.
Some signs of life from the beached whale. Dallas Cowboys at the Washington football team. It's a pick'em.
They can't be a beach whale because they were never big. They're just a dead body.
They're just a dead body. Okay. Dallas Cowboys at the Washington football team. It's a pick'em.
Is this still
Can
a
we
pick'em?
just redo that whole? Yeah. Is it a pick'em? Washington's football team. Look, people are overrating Dallas. I'm going to sit here and defend Dallas every week.
You're going to defend Dallas?
There are rumblings inside the building.
They're a two-win team.
Upset in the building. They don't think the team's prepared.
Yeah.
I don't like to buy into that stuff.
You don't.
Dallas is a couple plays away from being 4-2. And if they were 4-2, which they're not, if they were 4-2, you don't get Jane Slater, NFL Network, reporting about the infighting between everybody at the Cowboys and all this stuff and dysfunction.
They're also a miracle away from being 1-5.
That's one way of looking at it. But I'm just saying, I don't know if it's as dysfunctional as, some things don't go your way and you're losing. And
who was their other win against?
They beat the Giants.
The Falcons miracle on the Giants
and the Falcons.
Right. I don't even remember.
One was overtime. Overtime, Andy Dalton miracle.
Okay.
And a Falcons miracle.
They're
pretty close to 0-6. They're as close to 0-6 as they are 4-2.
Yes.
How's that?
Yeah. So ultimately, let's split the difference and say they're a 2-4 team that isn't good.
Yeah, they're better than the Washington football team. Did you get an update on the line?
It still seems to be a pick'em as far as I can work out.
People are buying into Kyle Allen against this Dallas defense.
I don't think they are. I think people are just finally coming around to the idea of, Dallas really does suck.
What time's this game?
What time is it?
Yeah.
I don't know. What time is it?
This is going to affect my analysis. I know it's 1:00. It's 1 o'clock game.
It's a 1 o'clock game. Why does that matter?
Andy Dalton's going to be so much better this week.
This is not prime time?
Yes. God. You can't have Andy Dalton make his first Cowboys start at night. The guy likes to go to bed at like 6 o'clock. He's, early riser, early to bed. 1 o'clock game. This is his wheelhouse. Andy Dalton spreading the ball around to all of these Cowboys playmakers this week. Dallas is going to bounce back. They got an easy schedule moving forward. We're going to be sitting here a few weeks from now like, man, look at Andy in the Dallas team, but really turning things around.
Who is his left tackle?
Doesn't matter.
Who is his left tackle?
Both hurt. Both out for the season.
Yeah. Yeah. And well, no, not out for the season. Brandon Knight is going to come back.
Knight's going to come back?
He's having surgery, but he's out for this game.
When I saw surgery, I think I just assumed.
No, it's one of those like go in, tidy it up. It'll be a couple of week surgeries. But the point is he's out. Martin is concussed. He might not be playing either. Like, that offensive line is miserable. Washington's defensive front is not. He's going to have some problems.
Yeah, I mean, look, Andy was supposed to be the guy with the quick release, supposed to protect the offensive line. He
still will.
Yeah, but he did look rusty the other night, was my point.
He looked bad, period, in that game.
But I'm just saying from like a pocket presence standpoint, he looked a tick slow.
But let's talk about the defense for a second, because what the hell are they doing?
I'm looking at the depth chart here, and there is a lot of red and orange on that defensive side of the ball.
But they're making idiotic plays. They're just not only are they bad and not particularly talented and just generally not good.
They're not talented,
but they're making boneheaded, idiotic, just basic breakdowns of what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Like Darryl Worley goes out there and just lets a guy run clean past him in cover 3, right? He's got a deep third.
No other threats.
And instead jumps into the flat. All right, it was at the sticks, but you're the deep third defender. There's already a guy for that one. You forget that. You follow the guy that's running past you because he's a problem. The Kyler Murray rushing, or the quick tap pass, was it to how am I blanking his name? Number 13.
Kirk?
Yeah.
Christian?
For the touchdown, right? Like, simple, the cornerback should have that. He's there. It's obvious. Why are you just standing there waiting for nothing to happen? Like, these guys are making basic, just simple read and react errors that you're not supposed to make on defense. That's what makes me buy into this idea of the disquiet in the locker room stuff, by the way, because one of the things that they said there is that the coaching staff is not good at teaching. They're just not communicating this stuff, right? And that's the kind of stuff that this...
But is that on both sides of the ball?
I don't know.
Because the offensive
has been good, right?
Well, Kellen Moore's running the offense.
Yes.
And they have been good. And, people still want to question his play calling and this and that. But at a macro level, they're still scoring a ton of points.
So let's limit it to the defense for a second and say that they are making the kind of mistakes that coaches should be jumping all over to correct the second you get in a meeting room. And they're making them every week.
We heard Richard Sherman on the Chris Collinsworth podcast talk. And I credit Sherman for doing this in season, because you have to be careful as a player with some of the stuff you say, right? But I think he was somewhat careful in just saying, look, you have to run simpler concepts, right? You can't overcomplicate it. Now, Sherman's coming from a world where they run 2 coverages.
But also the stuff they're breaking down isn't complicated. It's cover 3, you're a deep third, be in the deep third.
Right, but are you, they're coming off of a system that ran predominantly cover 3
but then
over and over, and they rep it. It's about how you rep it. It's not like, hey, run cover 3. It's, are you repping all of these things enough?
I don't know. And then they're like, this is crack replace down by the goal line. Again, this is simple. This is basic stuff.
Explain crack replace for our. You have 10 seconds to.
If a receiver crack blocks, he's in his thing, comes in towards the line of scrimmage and crack blocks somebody. You, as the cornerback or as the DB outside him, need to replace the guy that got cracked.
And you know this.
Yes, and everybody knows this who's playing defense. It's simple. It's like basic page 1 of how to play defense, and instead the corner just stands there I don't even know what he was doing, just looking at it. Darius Butler, former player, has been making some great breakdowns on tape on Twitter, and he has been ripping into these Cowboys mistakes.
Yeah.
But that's it's actually funny watching his videos, right? Because he's getting hugely frustrated at how simple the breakdowns are. But that's what I'm talking about. These are really page 1 things that are breaking down. I don't think that would happen I don't think that happens through like weight of things you have to deal with. Like we are repping so many different things that I forget how to play cover 3.
No, it's bad. I think it has to get better. I don't know. I like Dallas in this game. Real quick on Washington side, Chase Young, battling through injury. He's questionable again. I think he'll play. Is this the game that he goes off with the bad Cowboys O-line?
It should be, right?
Or beat up O-line.
He looked a lot better last week than he did the first week back from injury. He looked really good, obviously, the first couple of weeks before he got hurt. Yeah, I mean, he should have a big day given what he's facing.
Who do you like in this game?
I picked Dallas. I don't know why.
You're against Dallas in this whole thing.
Yeah, no, I'm flipping that. I'm going Washington. Flipping it. God, now I'm buying into Kyle Allen. What is this? I don't want to pick in this game. I don't like it.
Skip it. We'll just skip it. Detroit Lions at the Atlanta Falcons. We mentioned a couple weeks ago this could be the Lions getting back on track.
Yeah.
The Falcons are 2 weeks removed from the interim coach bump. So, taking the Lions.
Okay. That was simple.
How's that?
Yeah. Okay.
The Lions are simplifying. Well, they're changing it up on defense a little bit.
Yes,
all of their
smart.
Patriots folks played really well last week. Deron Harmon, Trey Flowers, Jamie Collins, they all played pretty well.
They have mixed things up far more. They are not any longer just giving people cover 1 every snap and saying, this is what we play, beat it. Because it turns out people were capable of beating it. So they had to mix it up. They're now running more cover 3 and cover 2 zone coverages, which is I think is important because honestly, like as good as the corners they've assembled to try and play man coverage, those guys are actually pretty good zone corners in theory as well. So I don't hate that as a decision. Problem is, if Matt Ryan and the Falcons are cooking, like they can beat zone coverage as well.
They can beat everything.
Jones, Calvin Ridley, Matt Ryan. Those guys will carve up that defense as well as they will man coverage.
Man, the Falcons, they should be much better. Matthew Stafford, by the way,
yes,
lowest passing grade since his rookie season as of right now. Stats aren't horrible.
I really want. Can I take a victory lap over this? Because I was telling people this was happening.
It's 5 weeks in,
right? But this is so obvious. Like last year, Matthew Stafford had the highest average depth of target of his career, and would have been the highest we've ever seen over a season, and one of the highest grades ever on those deeper targets. Of course, that was getting worse.
Huge big-time throw percentage, which does regress.
It was like an outstanding outlier season at the hard things, despite the highest average depth of target we've ever seen.
Clean pocket grade was best in the NFL. There were some stable metrics that were good.
Yeah, but it feels like that gets nullified if it's at the same time as everything else is really high, right? Like it might be stable, but if everything is an outlier, then it's still an outlier.
What in particular stands out in this game for you? I think I like watching Stafford and Ryan play. I wrote this week a little bit about Ryan bouncing back, and I think it's a fascinating year for him because he wasn't great for a couple weeks. Last week he showed he's capable. I don't know if it's going to be this back and forth every week, but Matt Ryan's proving himself to his next coach and GM, right? And it's like, are you just going to keep me for 1 year, or am I the guy you're going to build around? I think that's interesting. And even Stafford, how much is he proving that he's the guy for the Lions going forward? And, I think both of these guys are kind of in a similar spot here.
Yeah, for, I guess, different points of their career. But, yeah, kind of the same story. Atlanta is interesting because all their receivers who are capable of beating up on the Detroit secondary are questionable.
Yeah.
Like, they're all dealing with something. Julio's got a hamstring. Calvin Ridley's hurt himself. I mean, obviously, that's massive. Whether they're going to have success or not is whether those guys play or not. So that's one thing to watch in this game is who do they even have available. Stafford is actually a really interesting one to talk about in terms of like long-term future because he's kind of entering that. It's not as bad, but he's in that sort of Jay Cutler territory of the ceiling is so much higher than what we ever see on a consistent basis. And it feels like you just give him an endless amount of rope because eventually that's all going to come together, right? Like,
well, maybe last year was the ceiling.
Yeah. Like the full season of last year. You get that and you're a playoff team and everything's great and we can win. But do you just keep letting him go until you get that again? Like when do you eventually say, your baseline is not high enough for us to keep dealing with this? Like we're going to find someone else.
But what are the alternatives?
Well, this is a world of you can find that pretty easily. Do you just draft somebody?
I mean, that's why I'm interested in what teams like the Saints, the Patriots,
For example,
maybe the Colts. What are they going to do now? Do they want a Stafford? Do they want to have a year of Stafford?
For example, Detroit picked number 3 in the draft last season, and it was never even entertained the idea that they would be drafting a quarterback. Should it have been? Like, I get last year you were coming off. Well, you know my year. Last year you were coming off the half season where it looked like finally Stafford's all put it together. So that was a particularly bad timing moment to have that decision. But let's say the same thing happened this year, right? You got a full year of regular Stafford, which isn't as good as the half year of the one from last season. You're picking top 5 again, and suddenly you have a shot at one of these quarterbacks. Are we immediately just saying, well, what benefits Stafford the most?
Yeah.
Or should you be saying, hang on, why is Matthew Stafford keeping us from drafting a Justin Fields?
They were in a different spot than the Washington football team, though, because Washington had a new coach, 1 year of Dwayne Haskins and a big unknown, and we were like, consider Tua. And then the Lions are at, well, it's year 3 for Patricia and Quinn at GM, and they're like, all right, we gotta show the signs of life here. And they're less worried about the long-term health of the organization. They were more short-term focused. That was the issue.
That feels like a problem in and of itself, no? Like
of course, that's why you have sustained success by Patriots, Steelers, Ravens, whatever the teams that have played well. The Seahawks, there's been continuity and good quarterback play, but there's continuity with the front office, the ownership, all that stuff. That's why other teams are bad, because you got to go save your job, Sam. You got to keep your job. It's not about the long-term health of the Lions. I got the Lions in this one. Atlanta by 2. Is the Vegas. You got Atlanta winning.
I do, but I'm concerned. I mean, my pick flips depending on the receivers the Falcons have available. If they have the full slate, I think they win. If they don't, they don't.
That's fair. Kansas City at Denver. Denver, 9.5-point underdogs at home. Division game at division road game. So that's what we have a lot of these this week, right? Buffalo, division game on the road, underdog as a favorite. Seattle, favorite on the road, and then Kansas City favorite on the road in a division game. So, same thing with Cleveland when we get to that. Does Denver have a shot? Remember, they were 10-point underdogs last week on the road against the Patriots.
I don't think they have a shot, but I didn't think they had a shot last week either. The Chiefs are now fascinating because I think they've reached the point where teams are just like rolling the dice on weird-ass game plans to try and stop them. Like, it's like, we can't beat the Chiefs. They're too good. So let's just start coming up with weird things on defense and seeing if we accidentally stumble into a way that causes them problems. Because like, if we just go out and do what we think, Mahomes and the rest of the offense will just like light us on fire.
Yeah.
So you have what the Raiders did. You now have Buffalo, who almost seemed like they went out specifically to invite them to just rush for 200 yards, because rushing for 200 yards meant that Patrick Mahomes wasn't passing for 500, and you're better that way. I'm kind of curious to see if eventually a team just stumbles into something that's like a problem for them. And the Raiders felt like they kind of did. Somebody was asking me about this on Twitter, and they're like, well, wouldn't the game plan to copy be the one that like the Chargers deployed against them? What, assembling 2 top-tier pass rushers and maybe the best talented secondary in the NFL.
They covered really well.
Right, that's not a repeatable game plan. Yeah, sure, that might be the best strategy, but that's not one you can employ.
That's the same as saying the blueprint to beating Brady's Patriots is 4-man rush, 50% pressure.
Yeah, those are not blueprints to stopping the Chiefs. Like, the blueprint of stopping the Chiefs is having an equal amount of talent that they have on offense on defense, and basically nobody has that, so forget it. So let's, from a schematic point of view, is there a thing you can do? Is there a game plan that you can walk into somebody's defensive meeting room with, put it on the table and say, this is the best way to stop the Chiefs? It's not a guarantee. It doesn't mean it will work, but this is the best thing to do against them. I'm curious to see if teams will stumble into that. I think so far, the Raiders might have done the best job at that. And I wonder if...
They gave up over 30 points.
Sure. I mean, I'm not like, this is there's no...
Their best game plan was 219 deep passing yards from the offense.
There's no kryptonite, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing that's going to work and shut them down and limit them to 3 points and, every week, because they're too good, right? So the question is, it's again, moving the percentages. What swings things in our favor the most, given that we don't have the ability to match up with them one-on-one?
I think it's what the Bills did. I mean, it's hope that they try to run.
So I'm curious to see, A, do Denver adopt any one of the game plans we've seen so far? B, do they come up with a completely different game plan to do something else and take another shot at this and see if they can find something? Or C, do they just play like their regular defense and get eviscerated by a better team?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're solid enough on defense, though. Even their own base, cover 4 quarters type deal, they'll be okay at home.
Okay, as in like 30 points.
Yeah, but I mean, I would rather take the ball out of Mahomes' hands. I think it is as much as you can invite them to run.
Right.
And you hope that your guys, you hope that the Shelby Harrises of the world and Mike Purcells of the world can stop the run reasonably well.
And inviting to run is light boxes, 2 high safeties. Give them the looks where if you're playing honest offense, i.e. you're taking what the defense gives you, the call is to run at that point, right? Because you're giving them, when you lighten the single biggest thing that determines how many rushing yards you're going to get in a play is how many guys are in the box, right?
Right.
So if you have 2 high safeties, that means there's one that isn't potentially in the box. The strong safety's back deep somewhere. And, if you arrange things defensively so that your linebackers are not exactly crowding the line of scrimmage, you're basically saying this is a play where you should run the ball.
And then there's other things you can do off that, I think, too. You have 2 safeties deep, and then you do a lot of what New England has done, which is take away the best players, right? So when you start with 2 high safeties, you rotate to 1 high, you do it kind of late, and that extra guy that you roll down closer to the line of scrimmage is just doubling Tyreek, or he's doubling Travis Kelce. I mean, so there are all these different things on paper that sound good. Let them run, take away the best guy, take away Mahomes' first read, and make him get into more Texas Tech ball playing outside the pocket. That's when you start to, as great as he makes throws outside the pocket, like you'd rather that than him throwing to an open receiver from the pocket. So, yeah, there's a few things you can play with. And I think, again, the thing about a division that makes it tricky, even for like good team. Like, again, going back to the Patriots, they had some bad games against division teams that they were way better than through the years. Peyton Manning in the Colts had games where like the Jaguars, who were just okay, would beat them. The familiarity at least gives you an opportunity to slow down sometimes these juggernaut offenses. So that's where Denver might have this opportunity here. I'll also say, if they play like they did last week and at least catch the ball, Drew Lock made a bunch of those big time throws down the field that could have been caught. I gave him the 3, I called them unluckiest passes of the week, but essentially good throws that just didn't end up in good results.
That's another thing to watch is, do we get that Drew Lock again? Because I don't think it was the best game of his career, but it was a really good performance.
The high end stuff.
Yeah, it was a really good performance in a way we haven't seen that much from him, because obviously there was the interception late, which kind of ruined his grade, but he was really good for a good portion of that game and didn't get rewarded from it because of drops, because of guys making plays in the end zone on a pass that hit the receiver's hands for a touchdown, all those kinds of things. Does he play at that level again against the Chiefs, or does he go back towards being a guy that hasn't actually been that great?
Are you going to take another home dog? Road favorite, in a division game, Kansas City 9.5.
Yeah, I'm taking the Chiefs, and I'm taking them to cover.
Chiefs to win and cover. Denver won't do what they did last week.
No.
Here's a good one. San Francisco 49ers traveling to New England to take on the Patriots. Patriots by 2 here.
Yeah.
What are you looking for in this one?
This might be the most intriguing chess battle between coaches, game plans, masters at their craft. You have Kyle Rembrandt Shanahan going up against Bill, the Dark Master Belichick, one-on-one in a scheme-it-up battle to see who can do the best. That is fascinating. Yeah. Like, what is the game plan that Belichick deploys to try and stop Shanahan scheming people wide the hell open and free yardage constantly? And what does Shanahan dial up knowing that Belichick is going to try and take away what he wants to do primarily?
Yeah, I mean, I think the San Francisco's offense is not dependent on one player, which does make this tricky, right? They do a good job of just getting all players into space, from Brandon Ayuk, the wide receiver, to Kyle Juszczyk, the fullback, to George Kittle. Now, Belichick, when he runs into a Kittle, likes to deploy like 7 dudes and like just take the tight end away, right? He likes to do that with Kansas City and all that stuff. I don't know if you do that with the San Francisco offense, because then the other dudes are running free because of what you mentioned. Shanahan gets guys into space really, really well. So, I think that's a good battle. I think ultimately, though, San Francisco's pass coverage was better last week.
Verrett?
The Patriots, Verrett's playing fantastic. The Patriots' season comes down to their passing game. I mean, that's it. Cam Newton has to play better. A lot of Patriots beat writers going back and forth, like, yeah, guys are open. Cam's not seeing the field all that well. I think there's an element to that. But at the same time, it is the same group of playmakers last year that really struggled. Edelman and, you have Damiere Byrd replacing Philip Dorsett. I mean, it's N'Keal Harry out there. One of the worst tight end groups still in the NFL. So it's not a good group to throw to, but also Cam's just not playing really well. He has, in 3 games, 55 passing grade.
Yeah.
And then in the Seahawks game, so all 3 games that are non-Seahawks, 55 passing grade. Seahawks game was an 84. So he's got essentially one really good half of play from a pass game standpoint.
And also from the run game standpoint, teams have actually started to defend that properly. Like It was almost like they'd forgotten what Cam can do, for the first couple of weeks when the Patriots deployed that. And honestly, that kind of surprised everybody at the time, right? Are they going to lean heavily into this Cam Newton rushing potential? Oh, hell yeah, they are. They're going to ride him till the wheels fall off. And everyone had sort of forgotten how devastating that can be as a schematic problem. But then, I don't know, they opened the book on the shelf where they'd actually figured that out before. And, oh, yeah, this is how we stop that. And that's now happening. So suddenly the run game is less potent than it was because teams are taking away Cam's element and he hasn't been as good as a passer.
Ultimately, this is a lot of what we considered coming into the season. Not a great roster for Belichick. Going back historically and say, well, Belichick's been great without Brady because, look at his record. They're being put to the test right now. They're 2-3, and it's not an explosive offense. It's just they're so reliant on their defense, which was naturally going to regress. And I think that's why, I thought New England would be closer to that 10-6 mark, but that was assuming they were going to beat Denver. So, I don't know, man. Do you think New England bounces back here?
Yeah. I mean, this was the 49ers' first win outside of New Jersey. Again, maybe
they're just better on the East Coast and they're going to New England.
That's one way of looking at it. On the other hand, they might not actually be that great. We
have PFF Ultimate, and I love when we get into geography analysis.
Yeah. The NFC West has an incredible record as a division, and it's almost entirely propped up by the fact that they've played the NFC East so far. So I think there's a big open question generally in how good are these teams? I think we're all comfortable that Seattle is a good team. I don't know that we're comfortable that any of the other teams are good yet. So this is a good test, right? The Patriots are, whatever, they're not a bad team, right? However good they are is up for debate, but on a basic level, they're not bad. So now we get a decent test about whether the 49ers are capable of beating a not bad team. I'm saying they're not, so I'm going to pick the Patriots.
I think I'm going to take the Niners here. I'm going Niners.
All right.
Belichick's history, though, back against the wall, generally pretty good, but doesn't have his back against the wall usually without Brady. So,
true.
Taking the Niners, wow, it's going to be crazy if they fall to 2-4, New England. A couple more games, and then the game of the week, Pittsburgh Steelers and Tennessee Titans still to come.
Yes.
Jaguars at Chargers, one thing to keep an eye on here. I think it's always just those Jags young guys. Herbert, development.
They
avoiding the
have
mistakes.
Started to talk about benching Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, he's lost some of the shine.
Yeah, but why would you? What's behind him? You know what I mean? What's the point?
I think with Minshew, look, you might not get a Trevor Lawrence opportunity here as the Jags, right?
Untankable, tank-proof.
What we thought. You might not get a Trevor Lawrence or a Justin Fields opportunity. That's a possibility. And my thought is just make sure you get as much information as possible on Minshew.
Yeah. Well, so those are your two options, right? Do you exhaust every possible avenue in terms of Gardner Minshew, or do you throw in Mike Glennon because he's the guy that will get you furthest up the draft order?
Honestly, Glennon is not that much different from Minshew from a performance standpoint. Man, He's got
a very different looking head.
Very different. I've come a long way, I guess, in the last couple of weeks. I think you just get as much information on Minshew as possible.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't see the point in benching Minshew. At this point, he's not playing dramatically better than a Mike Glennon anyway. So it's not like even if your sole purpose was to tank for the highest possible draft spot, Minshew might not be taking you any further away from that than Glennon is right now. And he's young, who has some kind of upside. You owe it to him and your franchise to at least make sure that there's no chance that he's a quarterback going forward for you. You already know that with Glennon. So I see no purpose in benching him, to be honest.
I'm just going to watch Forrest Lamp because we haven't talked enough about him.
Okay.
Pretty good pass protection grade.
Yeah.
At left guard, 72.8. Got to improve in the run game, but he was an elite pass protector in college.
He was.
359 snaps this year. He only had about $170 coming into the year in his 3-year career. So good for Forrest being back out in the field. Realistically, I want to see Justin Herbert short and intermediate stuff. That's going to be my weekly takeaway. Like when I'm watching Herbert, special throws are there. The zip is there. I want to see the rest of those parts of his game develop. It's a 7.5 point spread for the Chargers.
One of the highest percentages of snaps under pressure, Justin Herbert, in the NFL. Only Daniel Jones, effectively, of full-time starters has a higher percentage. 43.7% of Justin Herbert's snaps have been under pressure.
It's not Forrest Lamp's fault, though.
No.
Forrest is doing his job.
It's not all the offensive line's fault either. Like Justin Herbert factors into that as well.
Sure.
But that's a problem number.
And I think that's somewhat limiting what they're able to do too, and why it's predicated on there's big chunk plays. I mean, he made like 5 really good throws against the Saints. Everything else was kind of meh.
Yeah,
they scored a ton of points because of it.
The stuff that Anthony Lynn was saying about they're not able to do everything they want to do with Justin Herbert at quarterback. It sounded silly because he looks so much better than Tyrod Taylor, but it's not completely baseless and crazy, right? Like there is truth to the idea that Justin Herbert does not help a bad offensive line. And if you're trying to get the ball out quickly and trying to mitigate the pressure that comes from that offensive line, there are plays where he's not helping you out, and Tyrod Taylor would. Now, he offsets that by the big plays that Tyrod Taylor didn't make for years and probably wouldn't make this year. But it's, you know what I mean? It's like he got ridiculed for that comment, and you can see what he meant at least.
I think there's interesting parallels between the Chargers right now and the Bengals. Bengals are going to be playing the Browns. We'll get to them right now. But both teams, it's going to be like an arms race for offensive linemen this offseason between the Chargers and the Bengals, and a couple other teams, of course. But the parallels of like, let's protect our first-round quarterback, Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert, and they have guys to throw to. The Chargers have good playmakers. The Bengals have some pretty good playmakers to throw to. But both teams need to creep back toward average on that offensive line. Finish up the Chargers by 7.5. I think this is one of those games the Jags keep it close.
The Jags keep it close.
Yes.
Okay.
I like the Jags to cover the 7.5, Chargers to win.
If they do, it's because Justin Herbert threw them a football. If Justin Herbert doesn't throw them a football, I think the Chargers win this comfortably.
Now let's get to the Cleveland-Cincinnati game. Cleveland's favored by 3 as they come here to Cincinnati. Will Baker bounce back here?
Yeah, big rebound game for the.
Really?
Well, it's week 1 all over again, or week 2 over again, rather. The Browns have an absolute disaster matchup against one of the best teams in the NFL, and then they get to rebound against one of the best matchups possible for them, and it's been the Bengals both times. So Baltimore to the Bengals, week 1 to week 2. Pittsburgh to the Bengals, week 6 to 7. So yeah, everything that was true about the week 2 is still true. The Bengals don't have a good defense. They're not particularly complicated on defense. Everything the Browns want to do on offense should function. It should roll. They should be able to rack up points. They should be able to dominate them on the ground. Baker Mayfield should be able to hit the deep ball against not particularly good corners, and they should be able to win this comfortably.
The Bengals defense, if you have PFF premium stats, PSV2, part of your PFF elite package, 3 guys have at least a green grade. It's all red and orange. Those are bad.
Yeah.
We have a green Carl Lawson.
Yep.
Green William Jackson. And a blue Jesse Bates, safety. So, as long as Baker Mayfield does not find a way to throw the ball to Jesse Bates,
yes,
and Bates has made some fantastic plays on the ball this year, then I think the Browns are okay.
Yeah. The week 1 to week 2, the thing was, can Baker Mayfield pull himself together, hang in a pocket, and not just like panic constantly and run around and do disastrous things? Now the question is, all right, he's shown that he could do that for a few games where things were working. Can he read a defense properly and just stop making idiotic mistakes? Like basic things. Again, he's like the quarterback version of the Dallas defense. Like these are very basic problems that you're still managing to find a way to trip over. Like this is day 1 install stuff. Can you read the picture in front of you pre-snap? That's the big thing, right? It's like, this is the picture. It didn't change. You didn't like fall victim of a late roll and just get confused. That's understandable. You just misread the thing. Like, you were showing the picture.
I don't know how that gets fixed. That's
same, but
it's an issue.
I don't know that. So, but that's the question this week, right? The first time the question was, can he hang in a pocket and be comfortable? This time the question is, all right, you're going to see a much easier defense.
Right.
Can you at least show the ability to work through crayon ABCs and throw the ball where it needs to go?
You like them to bounce back, the Browns here?
Yeah.
I'll take the Browns as well by 3. Always, Burrow and Herbert, always fun to watch every week. Burrow played really well outside of 2 throws last week against the Colts. Just to put that out there. All right, let's wrap it up with probably the best game of the week.
Mm-hmm.
We went in crazy order in this one.
Oh, we're going to tease it out.
Pittsburgh Steelers and Tennessee Titans.
Yeah.
It's the COVID rescheduled game. Tennessee's favored by 1. If I told you, say, a year ago, you've got Ben Roethlisberger, Ryan Tannehill matchup, and I described the quarterbacks as, you've got one quarterback who is a big play
This
generator.
would actually be perfect timing as well, because this was the week that Tannehill came in, right?
Yeah, Tannehill came in.
If I told you that Tannehill was going to play this week.
Ben was hurt. Tannehill is the guy. And he doesn't have a ton of, big-time throws this year, but boy, is he just spreading the ball around and creating chunk plays. Highest percentage of positively graded throws this year. And I said, you've got the high positively graded throw guy and an explosive offense that's nearly unstoppable. And then you've got an Alex Smithian, safe, not a lot of turnover-worthy plays, not a lot of big-time throws. You'd be like, that's Big Ben's the big play guy, right?
Well, 2 ways. One, if I told you that a Ben Roethlisberger, Ryan Tannehill quarterback matchup, Ryan Tannehill would be the better quarterback.
Fair.
And 2, that one of them would be hyper-aggressive and the other one pretty conservative, and Tannehill's the aggressive guy. Both those things a year ago would have sounded nuts.
Yeah.
And that's the reality we're dealing with right now. That Tannehill may have regressed a little bit, but not much. He's way closer to the last year guy than even – so the theory was, look, he's not going to regress anywhere near the end of Miami Tannehill, right? That was clearly that was a bad representation of what Tannehill is. But we had this sort of 80 grade Tannehill for a few years at the start of his career in Miami. And the chances are he's probably going to split the difference between that guy and last year, right? 80 and 90. He'll end up 85 somewhere. He'll be a good quarterback. Actually, he's way closer to 90 Tannehill than he is the 80 guy from before. Like, he hasn't split that difference. He's almost maintained where he was last season.
Yeah, is this one of those games that drags him back down, though?
Yes, because this is the biggest matchup in this. It's the same thing. Every team that faces Blitzburg has to deal with the most blitz-happy team in the NFL, who are also the best team in the NFL at generating pressure, in part because of it. We have never seen a team finish with a pressure rate on defense above 46-point-something%, right? 2011, I think, Eagles had the highest pressure rate we've ever seen. A few teams in and around 45. The Pittsburgh Steelers right now are generating pressure on more than 50% of their dropbacks. And we've said before that if you're above 40, you're causing real problems for offenses. They're an extra 10 percentage points higher than that. Now you're facing Tennessee, who don't have tackles anymore because Taylor Lewan is out for the season. So you're facing the most pressure-happy team in the NFL without your starting left tackle. It can't be anything but a problem.
Yeah, I mean, this game looks great on paper. There's a lot of am I slow to buy into Tennessee because of where their weaknesses lie? Pass rush is the lowest grade in the NFL. The coverage unit, which we talked about on Mina's show, it felt like for years they were the capable team. We've got Adoree Jackson, Malcolm Butler, Logan Ryan, nice little trio. And any given week, those guys are going to lock you down. Kevin Byard, patrol in the middle. You don't have Adoree this year. He's banged up. And you've got, Butler's not playing as well. Logan Ryan's gone. Byard's not playing as well. So the defense isn't as difficult to play against. And then wherever we stand on Tannehill, he's coming off of 2 really strong games.
Yeah.
But even early in the year, he's throwing the ball to safeties more than he was last year. And they only scored 16 against Denver at Denver. That's, the whole playing Denver deal. I like Pittsburgh in this one. I'd like them to show, I think they're the better all-around team in this one.
Yeah, I mean, I like Pittsburgh as well. I think that defense is just such a mismatch for teams right now. I know they've just lost Devin Bush. That's going to be a problem, or at least a big blow. I'm curious to see how Tennessee reacts to this Blitzburg attack, though, because it's a little bit like the proposition that's going to get, or we think will get posed towards the Raiders, which is we're going to come after you and we're going to dare you essentially to beat us over the top, right? That's the way to attack this.
Not with A.J. Brown.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. So with the Steelers, they're going to come after you the same way, and I think that secondary is actually kind of susceptible to plays over the top, but they gamble a lot, right?
Yeah.
The idea is, look, if we're coming after you with 6 guys, most of them are going to win. So we're A, going to get pressure, and B, it's probably going to come quite quickly. I don't have to really worry about double moves because you don't have time to run them. You know, I can bite on the first thing I see because most of the time that's what they're going to try and hit. So I think the secondary gambles a lot in terms of jumping after that first route. And that's why they look really good right now, because they're picking off Baker Mayfield because there's no thought at a second thing. You don't have time for that. But if you can get them, if you can hold on just long enough to get the second move or the second read, I think you can punish this defense for being that aggressive. We haven't seen a team really able to do it yet, but you know, the Titans have the constituent pieces to be able to hold on just long enough for the double move, or hold on just long enough for the second guy in the progression who's more open than the first guy that they're cutting down on.
To back up your point, the Steelers right now have the number 1 pass rush grade, run defense grade. So there's your front 7, but the number 15 coverage grade. So there is last year they were good all around, right? This is where, you know, the I keep mentioning the Brady Patriots on this show, but Vrabel's being compared to Belichick this week, right? If you saw this on paper and you were the Patriots and you had Tom Brady back in the day, you'd say, we're not even going to try to run the ball. We're spreading and passing, right? That's not Tennessee's game, though. Some teams are game plan oriented. Some of them are like, hey, we got to run what we do and run play action, and we got to get Derrick Henry involved to a point. Would Tennessee ever look at this game and say, we're actually going to not feature Derrick Henry? It's a Ryan Tannehill game. Spread it out. Spreading it out might invite 6-man pressures, but you know what's coming when you go empty and you get a 6-man pressure, and you know it becomes an Adam Humphries underneath game. And would they put the ball in Tannehill's hand to make decision after decision after decision? Because as great as he's still played great in a system that's like, we'll drop back 25 or 30 times. Right? And you're going to get your chunk plays and throw the ball deep out. He throws the routes that he's good at. Do you put the ball in Tannehill's hands and say, chuck it 40 times?
Yeah, I don't know if they need to chuck it 40 times or if they just need to be like, look, see, this is not going to be a good offensive day, right? Like, they have too good a defense. They're going to win a lot of the time. So what we have to do is make sure that we punish them a couple of times. So we can run Derrick Henry into a brick wall all day long, but at some point we're going to need to hit that 50-yard bomb over the top. Otherwise, we're just sunk. Now, I don't know if the better way of doing it is to say, let's try and be the Brady Patriots, where we turn into this high-volume passing. Let's try and execute this spread system and pick them up 5 yards at a time with 1,000 paper cuts in the passing game. That might be too ambitious. You know, we're just not cut out particularly well to do that. It feels like a system that's not going to work. Or if we just say, look, run our regular offense, accept that it isn't going to be a good day and it's not going to work that well, and make sure we hit when we have the deep shot, because that's the thing that flips everything, right? Is that we can have 3 failed drives, but if the fourth one we get the 80-yard touchdown, it might work. It might be worth it.
Yeah, and I think on the other side, Pittsburgh's got the advantage offensively. Big Ben, chuck it around, keep taking care of the ball. I think they'll make some plays. I like the Steelers in this one.
Yeah, same.
All right, man. Is that it? That's the Week 7 slate?
Let's talk, just before we get to Joe, let's talk quickly about the Tua thing.
Yes.
Miami, choose now to go to Tua Tagovailoa. Bench Fitzmagic.
Yeah, then it's the right move.
Is it?
Yes.
Is it really?
Yes.
Why?
Miami.
How is it the right move?
When you draft Tua.
They're 500 in playoff contention.
Yeah, I don't care about this year.
You don't care about this year.
The most important thing for the future of the Miami Dolphins franchise. Let's look big picture here, not week 6 of the NFL, week 7 of the NFL. The most important thing is that Tua is either good
Yeah.
Or if he's not good, and you get the next guy.
Okay.
It's the most important part of anything for the Dolphins, right? And you come into the season with a plan. Now, I don't know what the right plan is, but as long as you have one, you stick with it. And whatever that plan is, unless Ryan Fitzpatrick literally plays like the best quarterback in the league, you don't deviate from that plan. Meaning, if you came into the year and you're like, Tua, sitting out the entire season, I don't care what happens, he needs a whole year. He needs it. All right, then that's your plan. If the plan was bye week, which we're at right now, then that's your plan.
All right.
If the plan was as soon as he masters the playbook, if it's week 2 or week 12, it's happening, then that's your plan. So as long as they stuck to their plan, which is the best thing for Tua's development, whatever that might be, then they made the right move.
So I got 2, maybe 3 counterpoints to you.
Is it going to be a Kurt Warner point?
No.
Okay. That's
one.
That'd be a good one.
Richard Sherman on the Chris Collinsworth podcast featuring Richard Sherman said that that's the worst possible thing you could be doing. That's the thing that upsets him the most if that's what they did. This idea of they just stuck to a plan regardless of how things showed up, right?
Of course he said that as a player.
Because that's not football. Things change, circumstances adjust. You're now 500. Fitzpatrick's playing well. You have a shot at winning this year. Why would you go, well, just because preseason we said we were going to put him into the bye week, now we're doing it. Crazy talk. Sherman says this, not me, you understand. He's the one calling you an idiot, not I.
When I'm GM, I'm going to lose my players pretty quickly.
Secondly.
But it doesn't matter. We're going to win.
Yeah. Secondly, where was I going with the secondly thing?
Sorry, I keep interrupting you.
Yeah, my train of thought's gone. So that was the thing that upset him the most was that, secondly, if that was the plan, right? Preseason, whatever happens, here's our bye week, nice little circle, which moved, by the way. Like that adjusted with the COVID stuff. I think their bye week changed. So, you know what I mean? Like that's already a little bit of a question here.
The plan could have just been,
the bye week. Okay, if the plan was the bye week, whenever it is, that's when he comes in, right? If that was the plan, why did nobody else know? Like Fitzpatrick was surprised, shocked, saddened, heartbroken that they made this switch. He didn't know this was coming at the bye week. Neither, it seems, did anybody else who was as shocked as ever. If that was the plan all the way along, how is it such a huge surprise to everybody?
Maybe. Go ahead.
Thirdly, right? The only way this makes any sense to me, and this is what we were talking about before, is if he was playing so lights out in practice that look, he's ready. See? Look at him, carving everybody up. But you don't get those reps in practice. Like it's not like an even split, right? Where Fitzpatrick's playing 20 reps, you're playing 20 reps, and you get to see who was better. You are like the scout team quarterback. You're not getting the starting reps. We have no fair way of saying if Tua is ready based on practice reps. Unless, and I haven't seen any Dolphins reporters say this, but unless they had a completely abnormal divide of practice reps in a way that I think would have been reported if that was happening.
Right.
This can't have been decided based off what we've seen in practice. So the idea that Tua's just lighting it up behind the scenes and now's the time also doesn't seem to hold weight to me.
All right, to your second point. Ryan Fitzpatrick, former colleague of mine.
The man was crushed.
He's a buddy. He shaved his whole beard to do the NBC Chris Collinsworth special with me a few years ago, with me, featuring me. Former colleague. I love him. Fitz is great. If he didn't know that he was a bridge quarterback, if he didn't know,
but he didn't know it was coming at the bye.
You think Case Keenum was shocked every time he's been benched for the next young guy? He's like, I knew that was coming.
He knew, but he was the reason he was heartbroken is because it came now out of the blue. Without if this had been the plan all the way along, surely you would have told the starting quarterback that, dude, when we hit the bye week, your ass is on the bench.
You want Fitz, preparing every week like he's the starter, and then not, just.
You're telling me that if you had a plan from preseason that when we hit the bye, we're making a change at quarterback, you wouldn't tell the starting quarterback that was coming.
No, because you're Mr. Touchy-feely, player feelings guy.
Right.
If you don't tell your starting quarterback, look, you're short leash, no matter how you play, at some point between week 6 and 10, Tua's coming in. Right? You'd be like, look, you're the guy. Prep like you're the guy. Just go win some games, elevate everybody and your teammates and everything. What's the end game this year? Because I agree, the Dolphins are contenders now. They're 3-3.
Mm-hmm.
Fitz has played like a top 15 to 20 quarterback the last couple of years. Credit to him for that. What's their end game? A number 7 seed in the playoffs? Do you need a number 7 seed in the playoffs, or do you need to figure out what Tua is to potentially win a championship down the road?
But okay, here's the other point is, what percentage of Tua's possible outcomes give you a resounding answer either way on what he is for the rest of the season?
Now, that's fair, but I still come back to whatever the plan is. If you're of the belief that a player needs to play his rookie season to maximize his development, then I say you stick to that. If you're of the belief that, like Carson Palmer and Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers and Phillip Rivers, that you don't have to play right away and you can still maximize your potential, then you roll with that.
Following my point, if let's assume that it's a majority of his outcomes, we have no real idea what Tua is going forward. Is that fair? Most outcomes for the remainder of the season, we're going to enter 2021 not really knowing whether Tua is like legit or not. Yes?
Yes.
Therefore, you are saying it's a good thing to risk a potential playoff spot this year for effectively no gain most of the time because you don't know. You tossed away the chance of winning and making a postseason spot because there's a small chance that you'll know what you have in Tua either way.
The payout of knowing what Tua is or getting to that conclusion quicker might be higher than that. But
most of the time you're not going to.
No, but it's this year combined with next year and all that stuff. Like if Baker never played his rookie season and we only saw years 2 and 3, we never would have had that first year of saying like, oh, look how good he is.
Right.
It's just more information is my point.
Yeah,
you have more information. It's not all the information, but it's more. You get to your conclusion quicker.
The other thing I think is that they need to be really aware of how bad a situation this is to throw a quarterback into.
Oh boy.
I'm not going to go overboard on this, right? But Dolphins fans think their offensive line is way better than it is. Last year, it was one of the worst offensive lines in NFL history. This season, it's just one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. It's still bad, really bad. And it's a little bit better in pass protection terms than it is in run blocking terms, but it's still bad. It's like 26th, I think, in PFF grade from a pass blocking standpoint, despite Fitzpatrick having the third fastest average time to throw in the NFL this year and one of the fastest times we've ever seen if it held for the remainder of the year, right? So essentially, that offensive line is being protected better than basically any other line in the NFL and is still grading in the bottom 6 lines in the league, right? That's a problem. And there's no way that Tua improves that situation. It will be worse with a rookie quarterback. He'll hold the ball a little
bit longer, I think.
Even if, in abstract terms, he has a fast release, rookie quarterbacks hold the ball longer. It will be worse with him back there.
I will also say, just to temper expectations a little bit, in QB evaluation, I think you're playing this range of outcomes with the hope that you're getting a quote-unquote top 8, top 10 guy, right? I look at Tua and think, he has a percentage chance of being a top 10 guy.
Yes.
Right? I also see a big percentage chance that he is the comp I gave him, Jimmy Garoppolo, or not to do, Hawaiian scouting, but Marcus Mariota, right? Like there is a chance he lands in that bucket of quarterbacks.
Right.
So I think, and that's not exciting, but that's the reality of every quarterback. Even though we thought Baker had a higher percentage of being top 10, he lands more in the Mariota-ish bucket as of right now, the last 2 years. So there's a good chance that the offense does not look good at all, or it doesn't look better than it did with Fitzpatrick for a while. And it's important not to overreact to that because you're not, to your point, you're not going to know completely, but there's also a chance he's just a mid-tier quarterback who I still don't think has a great arm or upside there. He's a pretty good playmaker, but he makes some Jimmy G type of really bad decisions too, like Fitz. By the way, all that said, Fitz isn't playing that great this year.
No.
He's playing better in other like QBR metrics, other metrics, and he's still, trying to throw the ball through linebackers' faces a little bit too much.
Sometimes you got to put the ball where it needs to go.
You're just sad.
Look, I'm crushed for Fitz.
He's excited.
2 last points, right? One.
You have 2?
Small ones. One, they're debuting him against Aaron Donald with a bad offensive
As
line.
I said, he's not playing guard.
No, but he's playing the guy that the defensive tackle is going to kill.
He'll be fine.
He's playing Alex Smith in this game. You're trotting out a bad interior offensive line against Aaron Donald. That didn't go well for Alex Smith. It's probably not going to go too well for Tua. Again, you can take Aaron Donald out of a game plan, but you now need to spend the 2 weeks that you're planning to spend, get him ready for the game, figuring out how Aaron Donald isn't going to murder your young rookie quarterback. To me, that isn't a great time to debut him. Would you agree?
Is that both points?
It isn't, but again, I
just losing
lack of coffee or something, but I don't have my second point anymore.
I can be swayed, but I think...
Oh, I got it. Found it again. Do you think that the Dolphins looked throughout this landscape of rookie quarterbacks and said, well, Burrow's doing a pretty good job despite a crappy offensive line. Justin Herbert looks like a superstar over there. And we're already starting to hear, did they screw it up because they didn't have Justin Herbert? We want some of that. Like, yes. Fitzpatrick's okay, but what if Tua is as good as these guys?
I think there might be some of that in the decision.
All right.
And if that is the case, then I disagree with it. Right.
There's a lot of ways you disagree with this point that you agree with.
No, because I said the same thing when Jeff Fisher was putting Jared Goff in week 13 in 2016. Mm-hmm. I gave them the benefit of the doubt and said that they had a plan. And whatever that plan is, you stick to it. Not like, oh, it's definitely the bye week. It's just when my guy is ready to play football, he's going to play. Because Jared Goff's development was far more important than Case Keenum playing football in 2016. Just like Tua's development is far more important than Ryan Fitzpatrick playing football in 2020 for the Dolphins.
Okay.
Case closed. Now, let's go to Hall of Famer Joe Thomas. Yeah. It was a great discussion, had a lot of fun. And again, I think you'll understand, because of his attention to detail, why he's a future Hall of Famer. All right, we are very excited to be joined by future Hall of Famer Joe Thomas. Joe, thanks for joining the show. Appreciate you coming on here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, guys.
All right, well, let's get into all the fun stuff. Yesterday on Twitter, our friend Mina Kimes got into a big fight with Dolphins fans, and they were arguing about the offensive line being good in Miami. And put the Dolphins aside for a second, I wanted to ask you, as an offensive tackle, about the relationship between the O-line and the quarterback, the pass game, pass blocking. How much is that tied together, and how much should offensive linemen actually be blamed for sacks? It's the quarterback, right? Just blame the quarterback.
It's always the quarterback, right? I mean, think about how many great tackles Tom Brady made by getting rid of the football quickly and being where he's supposed to be in the pocket. And then you see those guys go elsewhere, and then all of a sudden they don't look so great. And I think you guys have done a great job, better than anybody before you or since, in actually just going back and watching the plays. And now you guys don't know exactly where the quarterback is supposed to be or how quickly he was supposed to get rid of the football. But if you actually just watch the plays from the end zone copy, you get a pretty good idea of, oh, well, the quarterback probably hung on to it a lot longer than he should have. He probably wasn't supposed to be in this spot. And so that sack really should be blamed on the quarterback. It's the same thing that we do in those meeting rooms. We bitch about the quarterback play on Monday morning. You guys are actually bringing the complaints of offensive linemen everywhere and bringing them to the world. And I commend you for doing that finally.
That's all we're trying to do here. So the obvious question is, how often did you have to chew out your own quarterback for being in the wrong place?
So here's exactly what you can do when you're watching a game to really figure out if a sack is on the offensive line or is it on the quarterback. When that quarterback is sacked, if that lineman goes over there very quickly, gives him his hand, extends his arm, picks him up off the ground, taps him on the head, you know it was that offensive lineman's fault. And he's trying to win him back with a little bit of sugar. But I would always do this. If it was on the quarterback and he was over there and he had that hand reached out, I was walking right back to the huddle and I was not helping him off the ground, because there's a million people that in Japan that are watching what just happened with me that are blaming me and cussing me under their breath that I got the quarterback killed. And between me and the quarterback, we're about the only people in that whole stadium that know it was really his fault.
We now need to go back through Joe's career and have a tally of how many he helped him up versus how many he just let him
blame him. It's great because, we do the very in-depth analysis of PFF. If you clap your hands and you're really upset about it, this happens more in coverage. It's probably your fault, right? You're probably the primary coverage. So we're onto those tells.
Yeah, versus
tells. Yes,
versus the coverage guy that immediately turns around and starts shouting at somebody and pointing. Yes. Doesn't matter who. Just turn around, shout, and point at somebody else.
And people know that so that's you trying to save your PFF grade. You're like, I'm just walking back to the line. I'm saving that grade, right? Or you palm up somebody. Give them palms up. It's like it's on you. All right. So, any quarterbacks that you want to blame out of all of them?
Well, I had more than 24 quarterbacks that I played with throughout
plenty
my career,
of options.
So it would take too long to blame all of them. Let's just say that it was never my fault. It's like perfect. It wasn't me. It was somebody else.
I like it.
How about just the transition for offensive linemen? Just our data says, look, a lot of offensive linemen don't actually show improvement until year 3 or 4. And I feel like that's kind of intuitive, right? It's such a complicated position. What is so difficult about that transition from college to the NFL?
Well, playing offensive line is about a million different things that are completely unrelated that you have to put together. And depending upon the defensive opponent you're going against, depending upon the front you're going against, you could block the exact same play in the playbook maybe 50 different ways. And so it's learning all those different ways that you have to block your opponent and the front that they're running, but also understanding that each front that they're running is going to require different technique. We would have completely different techniques on our inside zones, whether it was a 3-4 front that I'm going against or a 4-3 front. Because if I'm going against a basic 3-4 front, my inside zone technique is I'm just basically picking up my outside foot and putting it in the ground. I'm taking that man across from me, that defensive end who's usually head up, and I'm blocking him nose to nose. All of a sudden it's a 4-3, and now he's a wide player. Now I might be working a combination block with the tight end. So my footwork is completely different. My aiming point is completely different. Where my eyes are going to be are completely different. And so the only other position that's like that is quarterback, where it's all about just learning a million of those different things, putting them all together, and then reducing the number of mistakes that you make. That's what makes you a great player. And that's why it takes so long. I talk about getting your doctorate in being a quarterback. Well, it's the same thing about being an offensive lineman. You go to undergrad, you get your 4-year pre-med degree, then you still got to go to 3 years of med school before you're good enough to be able to roll you out there and say, we have faith and we have trust in this guy that he can get the job done more than he won't, and therefore he can be my starter, and I feel comfortable about having him out there protecting the most valuable asset that this franchise have, the $500 million quarterback like a Patrick Mahomes.
There's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah.
I mean, so when you're preparing in a given week, you mentioned this front and that front and my technique. How much of your preparation is what you need to do? How much is on your opponent? How much is run game? How much is, pass rush moves, the guy you're going up against? Like, what does your preparation look like in a given week?
Well, the run game is really vast, and that's why offensive linemen spent the majority of their time, especially early in the week, on working on the different techniques that you're going to see. Like I mentioned, if you're playing a 3-4 team, and let's say you play in a division that has a lot of 4-3 teams, you're not used to running the inside zone technique versus that front. And so you need to rep that a lot of times, especially when you get a front that's going to maybe move a lot. All of a sudden, you've got a defensive end that's going to spike on you a lot, or they're going to run a lot of strong scrape, or they're going to be a big wheel-free safety team. Like, you need to have that communication that has to happen in under a second at the line of scrimmage to be able to change everybody's technique and eyes among the front five and maybe the tight ends. And sometimes it even includes the fullback. And you guys need to be on the same page to be able to communicate that and execute that extremely quickly. The thing that's different about pass blocking is a lot of times it's the same thing over and over and over again. And so once you kind of figure that out, it's easy to carry that a long way. That's why you see a lot of offensive linemen that play a long time in the NFL, because even when their skills athletically diminish, they still have the technique that is required to pass block in the NFL. And that stuff is more about your footwork and where your balance is, where your hands are, where your eyes are, where your brain is, and less about how fast or how quick you are. And so that's something that translates a long time, but it's also something that's a lot harder to learn. It takes a lot longer to be really, really polished with your pass blocking technique. And so you don't see guys until 3, 4, 5, sometimes 7 years into their career become really proficient pass blockers, because it's all about replicating that same technique over and over and over again.
So everybody likes to ask players, former players, like who the best person you faced was. I am less interested about that. What I wanted to ask you about was about a specific type of player until I discovered there wasn't an American term for this. It's a British or an Irish term. I can't wait to
hear this.
So it's called shithousery, right?
A shithousery?
And a shithouser or a shithouse is a guy who sort of, so the definition is, according to Urban Dictionary, is somebody that is proficient in underhanded conduct or gamesmanship in a sport with the intention of gaining an advantage. But the thing they miss out there is there's something a little bit admirable about it, right? So he's like an asshole who specifically tries to like wind up his opposition, niggle him, but there's something kind of admirable about them as well. So who was like the biggest shithouse that you played against?
That's a great question, because it would be more than just being a dirty player. Like you're doing it in like a more of a pleasant way that your teammates can appreciate. You're not just like going out there getting penalties and 15-yard unnecessary
exactly
flags. I got to say, Alex Mack has got to be up there as far as players that I played with. Now, he was obviously a center. He was on the offensive side of the ball with me, but he was great at all those little tricks and those trickerations that, most people didn't understand or didn't even see. And he would get defensive linemen all the time, whether it be like with the nose guard, he could see that they were leaning, and he would make them think like maybe with his first step, give them that first touch, like he was firing out on them, and then he'd trap their hands and maybe get his hips around him to be able to reach a guy. He was really good at that type of stuff. Another guy I never played with, but I played on the opposing side of the field with Kevin Mawai. He was probably a great shithouser, or whatever that word was that you called it,
That's good.
because he was an undersized center. And as a center, a lot of times you can get by being undersized if you're crafty, if you're, you're using your quickness and your wit and like unusual techniques to be able to use that to your advantage. Because I think Mawai played probably 275, 280, and he was going against 350-pound nose guards. And so you're not going to blow those guys off the ball. You got to be really crafty and tricky and win a lot of times with your athleticism and your brain over those big hog mollies that are playing nose guard.
I think Mawai is actually an excellent answer. Just from remembering him play. I think that's a great one.
More like, I do want to know a little bit about the players that you've played, though. So not necessarily the best, but somebody that you thought, hey, I should be able to handle this guy, but he had something quirky about his game, something that made him difficult to block, or you'd watch film and unexpectedly maybe had some trouble. Anybody that stands out?
But, there was never guys that snuck up on me because I watched so much film, and I would just religiously watch tape until I felt like I couldn't get it wrong, right? Yeah. But I would say the guys that come to mind, Scott Solomon, it's a guy that nobody probably has ever heard of. He actually played for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I think, a little bit, and then we signed him off their practice squad. But it's the guy that doesn't show up on the scouting report, especially this happens in a training camp during the preseason. A lot of times it's the guy, you don't know what he does, you don't know what his moves are, you don't know what he's good at, and so you quick try to size him up like you would like in a high school AAU basketball tournament, right? Everyone lines up there at half court and just kind of picks the guy that they think they can match up with because they're about the same height and they kind of look about the same build, and you try to size a guy up, and then all of a sudden he does something different. And Scott Solomon was that guy, like we didn't know who he wasn't even in our roster, we had no idea. And like we were real nervous going into that game because we didn't know what his pass rush moves are. You see him on film playing hard, but then when you get to the game on Sunday, it's like he might be a spin guy, he might be a power guy, he might be a speed guy. Like we don't really know, and so it led to a lot of anxiety. But I would say maybe he would be the closest thing to what you're asking there.
And sorry, Joe, we got interrupted by Tyler, our producer, and Brown's.
No, he's got more important things going on over there.
Brown's
just
super
let him be. He's dusting the cabinets there, the shelving,
dusting the Browns helmet. We had to replace the Super Bowl champion Chiefs helmet for the Browns helmet for your appearance.
Yeah, absolutely, as it should be.
Scott Solomon, was not expecting a Scott Solomon shout out here.
So what about the other side? Was there anyone that you went up against that's like, Hall of Fame caliber player, Pro Bowler, and actually you were like, you know what, this was easier than I was expecting. I actually match up well with this guy.
So a guy that I wouldn't say was easier than expected, but I felt like I always matched up really well against was Justin Smith. He's, I think, maybe the first defensive lineman to make all-pro first team at two different positions when he was in San Francisco. He made it as a defensive tackle and a defensive end. And the reason I say him is because when he was earlier on in his career playing at Cincinnati and I was a rookie, he was big, strong, physical, athletic. He had a few good pass rush moves, and he was a guy that I was always really nervous about. But I always played really well against him because he had a little bit of a tell in his stance when he was going to be slanting to the inside. He would actually change his hands a bit and change his feet. And so when he didn't do that, I was able to jump set him and use my quickness and my athleticism against him. But I knew that if I jump set him when he was going inside, he'd beat me too quick because he was too fast to the inside move. And so I would wait and watch his hands and his feet every single time. And when he had his hands and feet telling me he was going upfield, I'd jump him. When he had his feet switched and his hands switched, I would call my guard over when I could, when we were in that type of a slide, and I would set off. And then I knew I was getting a little bit of help. So if I got bull rush and I started getting pushed, I would probably be getting a little bit of guard help. So that was probably one guy that I think maybe fits that description. And then Jason Taylor, the year after he won Defensive Player of the Year, I played him my rookie season, and he was a great player. He had tons of sacks, but I noticed when he would come with his long arm, he would long arm it high on guys, but he wasn't trying to long arm you to push you back into the quarterback. What he was trying to do is get you to trigger your hands. And he had these super long arms. And so when he would stick that long arm high into your chest, he would get you to trigger your hands, and then he would reach around and grab the back of your pad and pull you forward. And then he was so quick at flipping his hips and getting to the quarterback. He made a living getting sacks like that. But I deduced that, okay, if he wants me to give him my hands, maybe I shouldn't give him my hands, right? Like most offensive linemen, I feel like should be smarter than that, because I always claim we're the smartest guys in the room. But it seems like nobody had figured it out until I played him, that maybe what you should do is you should punch his hand. Like, don't give him what he wants. Don't try to grab his pads like every offensive line coach in the nation was telling you. Punch his hands, keep that distance. Don't let him get to the back of my pad. Like, that was the key on that guy, is keep distance. Some guys, you want to get in there and you want to wrestle with them. If you're bigger than them, if you're stronger than them, you want to get your hands on them. Some guys, you want to keep them out there, because what they want is for you to get close to them so that they can work those ninja hand moves on you. And so I think I was probably the first guy that tried that on Jason Taylor. It worked really well. And I don't even know, honestly, if anybody used it again on him, because he only made it maybe 3-4 more years in the league. And I don't think I ever saw anybody trying to punch the long arm the way I did.
Do you have a photographic memory? That's good.
About football. Everything else, like what I ate for breakfast, can't remember that. I can't remember the name of my kids sometimes, but like when it comes to left tackle play, I feel like I remember almost every play from every game. And maybe that's why I can't remember anything else.
Really quick, I looked up the data back to 2007, your rookie season, when Justin Smith, we don't have it perfect like every time you matched up against him, but Justin Smith, when he lined up across from you, he had a PFF grade in the 50s as a pass rusher, which is bad. And Jason Taylor also had a PFF grade in the 50s, which is bad. I won't tell you the guys that performed well, but you backed it up, and the data backs you up. Now, a couple months back, we met at the Super Bowl, and we had sent out a viral challenge to play 2-on-2 basketball with you and Hawk, and then we met you, and maybe we wanted to back down off the challenge just a little bit. And now that I know you're so prepared, you're probably going to he's probably going to fire up my high school basketball film and figure out how to play me. So if we were playing 2-on-2, Sam and I against you and Hawk, I mean, what's the spread on that game there?
Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go and look up your PFF grades from high school basketball and see where you were weak at, see where you couldn't shoot from on the basketball court. And then I would make you shoot from that spot. I would take away everything else on the court. Me and Hawk would just drown you with statistics, and then we'd overwhelm you with Hawk's quickness and my ability to tackle people.
So, I think that's pretty likely.
So I feel like there's a definite athleticism and height advantage for one of us, or probably both of us. Hawk's got the athleticism advantage, and I got the height advantage. So I feel like the point spread in a 2-on-2 game to 11 should be about 6. Like if you guys can get to 6, I feel like that's a win for you. We got to get to 11. You got to get to 6.
I would take that in a heartbeat right now. I would take that.
Sam's played like 3 months of basketball.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah. That was COVID saved us. Otherwise, we were in real trouble. There was a chance it could happen.
Anyway, Sam, finish it up with your big question here.
Oh, so listen. So when we have on guests, I do a little bit of research. I stalk your Twitter essentially, right? Find out anything interesting about you. And one of the things that intrigues me, I'm fascinated generally by this whole offensive lineman losing a ton of weight the second they stop playing thing, right? But one thing that jumped out to me with you was, so I think elite players generally are a little bit mentally wired different to the rest of us, right? So I saw a post you had where you didn't like olives, right?
Yeah.
So unlike anybody else who, if they didn't like I don't like pickles, so I don't eat pickles.
Oh. You're wrong, by the way. Pickles are amazing.
But your solution to this was not to avoid olives. Your solution to this was to go and find a giant jar of olives and essentially force yourself to eat olives until you like them now.
Uh-huh. And that's probably why I have problems with food. You mentioned losing weight in retirement. That was a big goal for me. I retired because I had a really bad knee, and the orthopedic surgeon said, hey, the only other surgery I can do is put a fake one in there. So what you need to do is lose weight. It'll make you feel better. And he was right. Like losing 50 pounds made a big deal. But when I retired, I needed to kind of dump some of this obsessive compulsive disorder that I had that made me a good offensive lineman into something else, because you're so detail oriented and like you get such a reward from just like having every little detail in something perfectly checked off the list. And you can't go home and put that on your kids or your wife, or they'll kill you for sure. No. And so for me, I was like, I got to have something, and I love to eat. So maybe I'll pour it into cooking. Right. And so I figured that if I wanted to be good at cooking, not obviously a Pro Bowl cook, but like just be good enough where if my kids have their friends over, I can make them a meal and the kids are going to be like, wow, your dad's a good cook. And so I was like, I need to not have any weird taste issues. Like some people, like don't like pickles. And I don't understand that. It doesn't make sense to me. But for me, it was olives. And I was like, you know what? I heard that the more you eat something, the more you're going to be able to like get a taste for it. And I thought, there's people that live in the mountains in Asia somewhere that eat some bizarre food and they consider it a delicacy because they've been eating it since they were a kid and they eat it enough and they like it. So if I eat enough olives, eventually I'll have a taste for it. So I went to Costco, got the Costco 2-pound jar or maybe 2-gallon jar of pickles, olives. And I said, you know what? I'm going to eat all of these. And by the end, I feel like I have to at least not hate them anymore. And I can firmly say today that I don't love olives, but I don't hate them, and I will eat them on pizza and things that I didn't before. So I feel like it was mission accomplished in that regard.
Unbelievable. Really are wired differently.
Right? That is the difference between him, professional athletes, and normal people. That's why you didn't make it, Steve. You're not crazy.
I'm not. I got stuck in the minors, unfortunately. Joe Thomas, we appreciate the time. Anything, where can everybody find you, all of the great stuff you're doing?
What can we plug for you, Joe?
Yeah, I appreciate it. You guys can find me on Thursday Night Football on the NFL Network. You can find my podcast, The Tomahawk Show with Andrew Hawkins, like we were talking about earlier. And then you can find me on Twitter at JoeThomas73. It's a lot of food stuff. So if you don't like food porn, don't go on there. There is some football stuff, a lot of kids stuff. They drive me crazy. And so I like to drive everyone crazy by sharing videos and pictures of them as well.
Can you cook better than Mitchell, at least? Or is he
I feel like Mitchell was a big inspiration for me to cook. And so he's definitely got the upper hand, and he's got a better TV gig going on with the cooking stuff right now than I do.
All right, fair enough. The Browns tackles, they can block, they can cook. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate the
Thanks
time.
a lot for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Man, I wish we had more time with Joe.
We will in future. We ran into some technical difficulties at the start of this, at the start of his call.
Is he gone now?
Yeah,
he was on his farm.
Well, you know that because we're in different outfits, so that's how you can tell that he's
just
gone.
let me play the game here.
Okay. He was on the farm and couldn't get on the Zoom. I'm pretty sure I sent him the right link, but I wouldn't want to bet the farm on that. Certainly
based off his attention to detail, right? I think he probably had the right link. Or it's probably you that screwed him up.
No, I don't think I screwed it up. Anyway, so we cut short. He had a hard out because he had to go pick up the kids. But he's all for it. We've been texting since.
Can I get some phone numbers here, please?
No,
I don't text. I don't have any friends.
No, nobody. You got Steve Smith's number. You could text him.
Oh yeah,
right?
I talked to Steve. Let's get Steve on here.
Yeah, Steve's fun.
Let's get Steve on here.
So anyway, we'll get Joe back, and because there's so many other cool things we wanted to talk to him about, but we'll get him back and do I think he's perfect for our off-season plan of interviews, like where we just have a deep dive for like an hour with a particular interview topic and just make it all about that. Yeah. The thing that blew my mind though was that olives thing. Those guys are just wired differently than regular humans.
Yeah.
You or I don't like a food, you don't eat the food. Simple, right? Like him, it's like, well, I don't like this. That's obviously a defect in me, so I need to purge it from my system. It's like the reverse of people, the thing where if you catch a kid smoking, you make him smoke like 2 packs straight so he'll never smoke again.
You do?
That's like a parenting thing. I haven't run into that yet because my kid's 7.
Yeah, my 5-year-old hasn't done that yet either.
But I believe that's like a tried and tested technique down the line. Now, it may be one that's since been frowned upon as
you like smoking, kid?
Right, as child abuse. But back in the day, that used to be how you dealt with that.
Probably worked well, though.
Yeah. So, but it's like the opposite, right? It's like, well, I don't like olives, so I'm going to force myself to eat a 2-gallon jar of these things. So by the end of it, I'll be okay.
Yeah, I did the opposite. I remember eating well during my playing career, being like, man, I can't wait to retire and eat donuts again.
Right.
Can't wait.
I'm just saying, those guys are wired differently.
I haven't stopped.
There's something. Yeah. They're crazy. There's a little bit of craziness behind great athletes, and that's why they're great.
That's why he's elite. Anyway, that was great. Loved having Joe Thomas on. Loved having the show. Again, go check out all the other fun stuff we did this week. Mina Kimes podcast.
The show.
Have him on the show?
Oh, that sounded different.
What did I say?
You said loved having the show.
Having him on the show.
I think you mashed together some syllables.
Can we edit that out, please? Steve doesn't make mistakes on this podcast.
God, no.
Anyway, that's it. We got to go. Week 7, great preview. See you guys Monday morning, reviewing all of the action.
Thanks for watching the PFF YouTube channel. And if you want to subscribe, all you have to do is push the button. Don't forget everything you get. A little fantasy, push the button. A little green line for the gambling aspects of the game, push the button. College football, push the button. The YouTube channel from PFF.